Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com. Or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Whew, what a game. Holy cow. We are here on a Friday night at 10:39 Central Time talking about Iowa's 38-28. Do I have that score right? 38-28. I'm still like, I don't know how to count that high. As an Iowa fan, I don't know how to count that high. So, yeah, we are here talking about Iowa's win, Rutgers' loss, Rutgers' first loss of the season at home. And so many notes to get to. We've got Coach Don Patterson in waiting. We have got your calls lined up. We are going to open the phone line here momentarily. If you're new to the show, folks, you can interact with us a number of ways throughout the next couple of hours. First of all, we got our phone line sponsored by Iowa Smokehouse. It is open. We've got a few people already lined up. Caller, I'm putting you on hold. We'll get back to you here in just a little bit, but the number to call in, we got a couple of lines still open, 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601 to interact with myself and Coach Don Patterson live here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. You can also interact via StreamYard. If you're new, it's very simple to join StreamYard. You just click the link in the description of the video on YouTube, sign in with either Google or Facebook. All your information stays with StreamYard. Nobody else sees it, but you can interact with us either by audio or with video as well. You can also interact via the live chat if you want your chat prioritized. People have been lobbying for me to shave. If you want me to shave, we've got a goal in our YouTube stream, super chat goal. If we hit that goal, I will shave tonight, and you'll see me clean shaven for the foreseeable future. That's my promise to everybody here on the show, and that might be a good celebration for Iowa's win over Rutgers. Our phone line presented by Iowa Smokehouse is officially full. Caller, I'm putting you on hold, but you are still welcome to call in via StreamYard. Get in the queue, get in line, and talk with Coach Patterson and I. Everything happens very fast after these games, and so bear in mind that if I seem distracted at times, just know that I'm trying to get everything set up with Coach Patterson with our many callers. I know it's going to be an active night with Iowa now 1-0 in Big Ten play and so many big plays to talk about. All right, to start out with, folks, we're going to go to our first caller of the day, and here's a guy who comes in bright and early on a regular basis. It is Mr. Alex. Why can't I see you, Alex? Alex, I can hear you. There we go, Alex. Welcome, Alex. You're muted, but let's get you. Can we get you unmuted here?
There we go.
Welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome. Good evening. How are you?
It is a good evening.
I won't live past 60.
No, hold on a second. You don't look happy. You need to stop what you're doing. Knock it off. Get happy. Get glad.
Man, I won't live past 65 watching this team play, but
this is not a garbage bag commercial, but get glad because Iowa won tonight.
Oh, I'm happy. I tell you what, part of that first half I was pretty much the opposite of what I am right now.
I get it. I totally understand. I totally understand.
What was the first half? Kickoff. We're here, and we go here, and then we go here, and then we go here, and then it kind of went up from there. So, but
there were highs and lows all game, and I think all of us can say in unison we were all waiting for that defense to finally make a play. We're 4 games in, and it was nearly the end of the fourth quarter before that defense finally made a defensive turnover, a big play on defense that forced a turnover. And I don't know the stats. I mean, I'm just going by recent memory. I can't recall a year where it's taken basically 4 full games for Iowa's defense to force a turnover. And yet, here we are sitting at 3-1, 1-0 in Big Ten play with a road win. I'm a happy camper. And we're going to get to all the ins and outs of this, Alex. But my question to you is, I'll say an average fan, you're a big fan. Who should be the player of the game tonight? Because that was my biggest struggle. And I've already named it. The decision has been made. I'm about to announce it on social media. We're going to talk about it here on the show. But I went back and forth here because you can go a lot of different directions. There were a couple of guys that made good plays, and then they made a couple, I think, bonehead plays. You might know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
Weegan would be 1. Mark, I think, would be maybe 2. He missed some throws, but wide receiver had 2 drops. The one throw to Ortworth where he would have just wide open, that would have made the game a little more comfortable to watch. Kamari Mooten.
What was that? It was not. You're close.
Yeah. It was nice to see him back. It was actually nice to see Jazz get in the game early. Unfortunately, I know he went out with an injury, but I don't know anything about that, or at least have an update on that. You could talk about who got the interception. Rex Roth. I mean, that was key.
Huge.
You can kind of give it to Llewellyn because if Llewellyn doesn't disrupt the quarterback's throw, that interception doesn't happen. I think TJ Hall played a great game.
That one, here's what I say. I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. I did not select TJ Hall. But I'm just going to say, I had somebody, I had somebody tweet at me during the game, TJ Hall sucks. I'm like, I thought he was really good. I think he was
Sean
really
Lee looked worse. Like there was
Deshaun
one
Lee's the
ball
guy
where
that
it was just like there was one ball that it was just in a dime, where it was like that's kind of hard to defend. It was like that one catch at Ohio State, the Jeremiah Smith had over his head one-handed. It was kind of one of those where it's like you can't really defend that. But I felt like Deshaun Lee got picked on a little bit, but TJ Hall was really solid, I think, tonight.
Oh, I agree. And they were attacking. It felt like, I'm sure you would agree with this. And I know it's not totally reality. I'm sure once I look at the official box score, once it's posted, that won't totally bear itself out. But it felt like in that first half, especially that first quarter, Alex, it felt like Rutgers was just taking shots every play.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it felt like they were just saying, we don't need to run. We have no interest in running. We're just going to snap the ball, drop back, and take a shot every time, and you can't do nothing about it.
No, and it was like it's kind of like, we think of Rutgers strong defense. Now you look at them, it's like, holy crap, they are really potent on. I mean, they have a good quarterback, and their wide receivers, I think, are criminally underrated. I think now people kind of look at them now, maybe even after this Iowa game, it's like, ooh, maybe this is a team we should kind of keep an eye out for, specifically on offense. Defense, maybe not so much, but it's their offense. If you get them in the track meet, they have a fighter's chance.
The problem with Rutgers tonight is they really didn't run the ball effectively.
No,
they ran. Let's see, they ran for 70 yards, and they only ran it. They ran it 30 times. Now that is
part of that is sack adjusted.
I understand, but that's how many sacks did Iowa have? They didn't have more than 4 or 5.
Let's see, they had 3 sacks.
But even if you take sacks out of the equation, just look at Callie McManus's rush yards. Callie McManus was 10 carries. Okay, so 10 carries,
10
4
yards.
yards.
10,
okay,
so he had 16 sack yards. That's what I'm seeing.
16 sack yards. So, I mean, even if you take
20.
quarterback out, if you can just talk about the running backs for Rutgers, take 10 carries off that total, you're looking at 20 attempts for, what did I say?
60.
yards.
It's 66 yards.
Yeah, 4 yards. 20 attempts. Still very average at best. They're really electric on the perimeter. And so I think part of this was Schiano and that offensive staff recognized
Kurt
Shiraka. They recognize Iowa's weakness was on the perimeter, on the back end of that defense, specifically with Deshaun Lee. And they targeted the linebackers too and got those guys out in space early. But they recognized that in the game plan, took advantage of it. But eventually, when you force them to run the football, especially when you get those drive killers, they are true drive killers with Rutgers when you get behind the chains.
And I think, we talk about the corners, Deshaun Lee and TJ Hall, who and I've already said, I think TJ Hall has taken a major step, even since that first game, where the linebackers we used to have some good covered linebackers. It seems like that's where, if our linebackers are put in conflict, whether they're going to stop the run or go into a pass coverage, I feel like that's where our biggest weakness is at, specifically in the coverage side of things. I mean, I think Rex Roth, obviously, he got the interception. He's a better coverage guy than I think Shire or, oh God, I can't think of the other guy's name off the top of my head.
Harold. Yep.
Harold, yeah. So I think that's where teams can dot up Iowa, is put those linebackers in conflict of, do we on play action specifically, do they try to come up and stop the run? That one touchdown that Athenian Callie McManus ran in, or was the last touchdown they scored? I can't remember who ran it in. But the Rexroth was just kind of standing there, and he got frozen by the play action or by the RPO of, is Callie McManus going to hand the ball off or is he going to keep it? And he was just completely frozen, and the guy walked in untouched. So, So I think our linebackers, they're solid, but I don't think they're anywhere near the level we used to have with, you talk about Nick Jackson and, oh God, I'm going to get roasted for not remembering,
Jay Higgins.
Jay Higgins, Jesus, so, I mean, but, it's kind of hard to replace guys like that who've been in the program for so long, and then you have to bring in brand new guys. So,
yeah, no, I agree with that. But you look at the numbers. Shire played well, struggled early. TJ Hall struggled at times, but played well. And what a huge play by Rexroth. Here's a backup linebacker who's kind of played a couple of different positions during his time at Iowa. By the way, came here as a walk-on, doesn't play a lot, plays sparingly. And, he made maybe the biggest play of the day. Now, the next question is what deserves the Big Grove big play of the day?
It's Weejan. It's a 100-yard kick return. That's the or the Dayton Howard 40-some-odd yard catch.
Or the tipped pass by Llewellyn and the diving catch by Jackson Rexroth. I mean, that was there's several candidates today on that one.
Yeah, you could put up a poll and see who.
It's already been decided. I just wanted to get your thoughts.
So yeah, no, those three plays, yeah, definitely. Opening drive, it was, it's like holy crap. But then I was on Twitter and someone goes, "Hey, remember when Iowa returned a kickoff against USC in the Orange Bowl?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do remember that." And they got completely boat raced after that. Obviously, different outcome this time. So
different outcome.
So
Alex, I'm sure you got to get to bed because you're probably not going to be up with us real late. But feel free to call back once we get Coach Patterson on here. He should be joining us any second. So, celebrate the way. I know it was an up and down night, and I know there's lots to be concerned about, especially going into a top 25 matchup next week. But every Big Ten win is a win, and the schedule. Yeah. Every game on this schedule, they don't play Northwestern, they don't play Purdue,
UCLA.
They don't play UCLA. So every game that they win from here on forward should be celebrated because it is a difficult schedule. And I don't know that they're going to hit the mark that I had them preseason. I mean, I had them at 9-3, folks. To me, what I saw tonight didn't look like a 9-3 team, but survive in advance. How much can they improve between now and next week? You get an extra long week with the Saturday off and then a bye week. If you can make the most of that and figure out a way to upset Indiana next week, you could be 2-0 heading into a crucial stretch of play in the Big Ten. So good.
So I got a question for you. When this game was going on, did this give you 2018 Purdue vibes?
2008? That's a random.
2018.
Yeah, that's a random game. The game in West Lafayette. Oh, yes. I know why you're bringing that up. It was back and forth. Okay.
38-36, and Purdue won that game.
I didn't think about that, but now that you say it, now that you mention it, yes, but they lost that game.
Yeah, but that's just kind of brought back vibes. They're just offense back and forth, and you're just like, oh man, can Iowa keep up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's a good comparison. I couldn't the game that flashes in my mind, because here's the conversation I've had with a lot of people, and we're going to welcome Coach Patterson into the mix as well. Don, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here late night with Alex and I, and we'll get to you in a second, Coach. But Alex just brought up 2018 Iowa Purdue. The back and forth offense is going back and forth. It's rare that we see that with Iowa teams under Coach Ferentz, especially in the last 10 years. But I'll say this, Alex. We've talked on this show about how rare it is for Iowa's offense to bail out the defense. And the game that comes to mind for me was 2017 when Iowa won 44-41 in Jack Trice Stadium against Iowa State. But 2018, they were back and forth and lost. But I'd be curious if somebody else can, and if you're in the live chat, you're just hanging out at home, you got an extra device nearby, tell me, besides 2017, when is the last time when an Iowa offense truly bailed out the Iowa defense? And I believe, and I'll get Coach Patterson's opinion after you get off here, Alex, but I believe tonight you would have to say that Iowa's offense played better than defense overall, sort of bailed out the defense. And I don't know the last time you could have said that. My mind initially goes back to 44-41 Big 12 game against Iowa State 2017. So
when they won. Yeah.
They won that game. Anything else for Coach Patterson, Alex, before we let you go?
No, I think I missed you last week. I know Corey has a goal to shave his beard, but I said, what's it going to take for you to grow a beard?
Oh, you said, what's it going to take to get him to shave his mustache? That's what you asked.
Oh, well, either or.
Don, what's it going to take?
I have a bad scar in here somewhere.
Well, what about the beard? You can't grow the beard out? You can't become Farmer John for us? No? All right.
Probably not.
Okay. Maybe bring back that cowboy hat you had on. That
I know I wouldn't have a lot of facial hair under here because of radiation.
So he's got good reasons. I think they're going to need to do more than beat Rutgers on the road for Don to bring out the sparkly cowboy hat. Those aren't sparkles. What are those called? There's a
sequence.
Sequence. Thank you. Sequence. Of course. I shouldn't say. I was going to say, of course you would know that word. I'm sorry, Alex. That sounds mean. I didn't mean it.
I may have been in show choir for a few years, so I kind of know some of that stuff. Don't ask me to sing now. I've lost the talent.
Well, so, Alex, appreciate you being here, sir. And we'll talk to you hopefully after another win next week against Indiana.
Hopefully. Have a good night, gentlemen.
You too.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, Don. Well, we're here. We got about 600 people logged on at about 11 o'clock Central Time. No surprise. People are excited, A. There's, I'm sure, a faction of the fan base that's frustrated, B, with what we saw at times tonight. I'm sure there's another faction of the fan base that's just totally relieved. I'm in that camp. Like, I'm happy, but I'm also like, man, that was a roller coaster. So many things. You know, there's some games, Don, and some of it's because they're, you know, the opponent. You play an opponent that's just not very good, or it's a boring game. And I, as the average guy, don't have a ton of notes. In this case, my notes are 2 pages long. So I don't know where we start with this one. I know we've got a bunch of people who want to chat with you. So, folks, hang tight. If you're, Don's got plenty of notes. We're going to get to your calls. We're going to get to your comments. I want to prioritize the super chats before we get to our breakdown. That way we can kind of get ahead. Johnny Hawkeye, thank you for the super chat. He says, resilient and important win for this program. Resiliency, absolutely. How important will the win be? It obviously, you know, it's going to be dependent upon, do they ride this momentum and get a win next week against Indiana? A 2-0 start would be huge. Win over a top 25 team in Indiana, just as big. R. DeLevy, or DeLevi, he's adds a super chat. He says, big win. Hopefully this will make the Doomers give Gronowski a chance. Yes, he's not a Heisman QB, but he's certainly not damaged goods. I agree. And perhaps a little foreshadowing for what we're going to talk about in our segment in just a second. Go ahead, Don.
I'll say it this way. Mark has the heart of a lion. He's a competitor.
Is that a little hyperbolic, Don? Are you being a little hyperbolic with that comment?
I've described a few quarterbacks that way through the years, but not nearly all of them.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Tough stuff tonight. Resiliency. I think a couple of these comments have hit it nail on the head. And Eric, thank you for the super chat. Wicked Leicester won a shootout. The doubters are silenced tonight. No irrational exuberance whatsoever. Wow, some vocabulary there from Eric. Appreciate that super chat. It was a shootout, Don. And let's just start there before we get to your thoughts and the callers and all that. I thought Leicester did call a really good. And I said that. I know it's easy to say that when you win. But I said it at halftime. I said I thought Leicester called a really good first half. And the reason I say that, and I think you know what I'm going to say here, Don, is even when Iowa struggled offensively in that first half, I think back to the first drive of the game, it was due to clear lack of execution, not due to bad play calls. And it was mostly lack of execution from receivers. I thought there was a bad no call on a potential PI on that first offensive drive of the game. And then Sam Phillips, just really bad drop. I mean, that ball was put perfectly on the money along that left boundary. But I thought Iowa's offense, it looked like it was a well-called game. You're a former play caller. Just talk about what you saw from Leicester calling plays from the box tonight.
Well, I saw a lot of good wrinkles. I like wide middle screen. That was a good play.
One of many, but that was good to see.
There were a lot of good wrinkles. And it was a fun game to watch. What pleased me, there were a couple of moments in the game. I know we're going to talk about the end of the first half at some point. I found myself thinking then, are we really going to regret not getting that 3 points at the end of the half? And thankfully we didn't. I'll give you another example. I believe it was in the third quarter. For no apparent reason, we burned a timeout. I'm thinking, hope that didn't come back to haunt us.
Yep.
I'm just mystified why we took it. There's about 12 seconds on the play clock. So it wasn't a delay issue. It didn't appear to be different personnel. I don't even know if they knew for sure what the Rutgers plan was on that particular play, but for some reason we took a timeout. And that didn't come back to haunt us either. That was relief. And then last but not least, of course, the underthrown ball on the goal line when we had to settle for a field goal. I thought that might come back to haunt us. It did not.
Yep.
The bottom line, the mentally tougher team when it mattered the most was Iowa. Fourth quarter, we won that fourth quarter going away primarily because we were mentally tougher and more resilient than the other team. And I'm not trying to beat up on Rutgers. They've got good guys too. Our guys were simply better.
Don, how do you respond to people that are really? I mean, we're going to talk about the defense, but that are doom and gloom because they don't believe that wins like this are sustainable for a program that plays like Iowa. I thought the defense played better. I guess long story short, I thought it played better as the game went on. They had that one poor showing in the second half, but really after the first three drives, and that's too many to get going, and there's a lot to correct. I thought the defense figured it out. But how do you respond to maybe the people who are overly negative tonight because of the struggles in the defensive backfield?
My short response would be, do not underestimate our defensive coordinator because he adjusted. In the early stages of the game, we'd play man and take advantage of the matchups, whether it be an inside receiver versus a nickelback or cash guy, as you call it, or other times, if we played zone, they would dink and dunk us a lot. A lot of time it was a back out of the backfield maybe, or an inside receiver at least, just catching the ball in the soft spot in the zone, then turning downhill to gain enough yards for another first down. And that wouldn't have been such an issue, except we were not getting great pressure with the four-man rush. The only problem when we tried to load up and play man-free tight, we got burned. And those guys do present matchup problems, those two receivers.
They do.
They do. Deshaun competed, got beaten a time or two, but those are good receivers. And the bottom line, and then I made a note, we got to be able to get pressure without going all out blitz. And the way to do that, of course, is play some games up front. Blitz under got through. Herget sack was blitz under, as we call it. Outside rusher that dipped inside and won with an inside move. And then other times we simply beat them off the edge. Llewellyn, of course, won off the edge. I didn't make this note as the game went on. If you can't stop someone from driving the ball on you, now you realize, oh, yeah, that's another reason turnovers are kind of important, because we can't get off the field if we don't force a turnover.
Right.
And we finally forced one, and it mattered a lot. And sure enough, it was a pass rush that got home, not to produce a sack, but to produce an errant throw. And thankfully, Rexroth made a nice play on the ball, and we finally got a turnover. So that's progress.
I don't normally do this because, just so everybody's aware, I don't consult with Coach Patterson before I go about the process of evaluating players and plays for our RTI Threads player of the game, as well as our Big Grove big play of the day. So I'll ask you first, Don. Let's start with the big play of the day, and then I'll reveal who our Big Grove's big play of the day goes to. But what play do you think deserves that award tonight? Because there's
a couple of really good candidates. I put an asterisk by this one. Dayton Howard on a Vegas route, as I call it, inside fade, a fade to an inside receiver, plus 42 yards. And we were behind at the time. I do believe we were behind 28-24. I'm sorry, we were behind, 28-24 at the time. That Vegas route hit for 42 yards. And shortly after, we scored to go ahead, 31-28. That was a big play because right then and there, Rutgers had every reason to believe they were going to hold on and win the game because, let's face it, we haven't been great at making super explosive plays. And that was a contested throw, but it was a nice job of high pointing the ball. Again, I got to give some credit to our coaches on the bench because Dayton hadn't played much all night long, but they knew if we're going to throw an inside fade to an inside receiver, if he's covered, it would be nice if it was a 50-50 ball. In other words, let's put in a taller receiver and have a chance to win, not with speed necessarily so much, it's just leaping ability. And Dayton did a nice job of staying with the pass. It was a good throw by Mark, plus 42 to set up a go-ahead touchdown.
What do you know? We are in unison. We are simpatico, Don. Our Big Grove's big play of the day tonight was Mark Gronowski's 42-yard pass play to Dayton Howard. 6:33 left in the fourth quarter. I went back at the end of this game and was like, when did that play happen? Because, you get caught up in the moment, Don. I'm like, 6:33 left. They're down 4. They need a touchdown.
Yeah, the clock was low, and the field goal wasn't going to be much help. I did find myself thinking, do we dare try to win with 2 field goals? By one, I wasn't even sure we'd get the ball back. Because, like you said, the clock was low. That was a big play. And reassure everybody again, Corey, we didn't discuss this. We both agreed on the same play without knowing what the other thought.
And again, there were several candidates. I mean, Alex was really confident when he jumped on here a few minutes ago. He was like, hey, it's Caden Weegen's 100-yard return to start the game. Big play, no question about it, big play. Then I thought the tipped ball, I mean, Llewellyn to finally get home by the slimmest of margins, affect that ball. And then Jackson Rexroth, a guy who doesn't play a ton, former walk-on linebacker who's kind of played at a couple different positions on the defensive side. What a great story. He dives and gets his arms under that ball. What a huge play. But to see Dayton Howard make a play, and he's a guy I've talked about, it's not like he's been some star, but what a big play and a big moment for a guy who's being called upon, partially because Reese Vanderzee's out with injury. He's really the only other guy that gives them length. Right. And Don, you've talked about the fade, but a great route run by Howard, well-placed ball by Gronowski. And I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that was on third down, correct? Maybe you alluded to that earlier.
Let me check. I do think it was well defended. He was right there to contest the throw. Dayton simply made a better play on the ball than he did. I don't have down and distance down. I'm not sure.
Okay, let me pull it up here because I have it. So 6:33 left in the game, and that was it was 2nd down and 6. So second down and 6, but keep in mind Iowa was at its own 47-yard line and needed a touchdown with under 7 minutes to play.
And as you know, Corey, we've proven we can put together a long drive maybe, but it's going to take a long time, right? Yes. To just grind it out is nice unless the clock's an issue. And I was sitting there thinking, do we have time to drive into field goal range and hit a couple of field goals? And let's not forget, we missed a 40-yard field goal tonight too. So we both have great faith in Drew, but Drew's still only human. Nobody makes them all. And I just was concerned. I didn't doubt if Drew had a chance to kick 2 field goals at the end to beat him, he could do that. But I just wasn't sure we'd have enough time to do it. Yeah. Because the clock was getting low.
And let's be honest, there were a number of times tonight, Don, where Iowa's defense could not get off the field.
You're right.
Was a moment there in that I believe it was the third quarter drive where, I think it was early fourth quarter, where Rutgers goes down the field for a touchdown, and it kind of resembled what we saw in that first quarter. So to be able to go out there, get a super explosive play to a guy who's been really quiet throughout his career. What a big, and Don, talk about that catch because, we talked on the phone briefly at halftime, and I expressed some frustration personally just with some drops there in the first quarter. And I was sort of forgiving with some drops against Iowa State, but boy, it was a big drop by Sam Phillips. There was a drop by someone else. I don't remember who it was, Don. Maybe you'll recall. Was it Hayden Large or Vanami? It was one of those guys, I thought.
Vanami, I think.
Vanami. Yeah. One of those guys in that first half. There were a couple of drops, and I'm just thinking here, man, you can't afford those drops in a game that looks like it's going to be tight. And so for Dayton Howard to make that play, a guy who hasn't even seen targets, Don, how do you explain the magnitude of that, and what did you see on that play with his ability to make that play through pretty good defense?
Well, he's just been well coached to understand sometimes you're going to have good coverage, and those 50-50 balls, it's a little bit like being a great rebounder in basketball. Part of it's just having the grit to go up and attack the ball, because there's going to be some contact, and the stronger player usually ends up with the ball. So,
and to be the stronger player on that play.
Outstanding concentration, that's a given, because there's always going to be a little bit of jostling without a flag, incidentally. You're not going to get a flag. And TJ's done a good job of figuring out you'll get by with some incidental contact, But the key is to get your eyes around, because if you're trying to play the ball, then it's even more logical to believe that the contact really is incidental.
Yeah.
Right? He does a better job of getting his eyes around to defend the ball, and of course to be less likely to draw a flag.
Big Grove's big play of the day, quarterback Mark Gronowski's 42-yard bomb to wide receiver Dayton Howard with 6.5 to go in the fourth quarter. Before we get to our call line, we are going to get to our Iowa Smokehouse callers, but as I alluded to with the phone line, our show is proudly sponsored by none other than Iowa Smokehouse and their awesome products. All of their products are available online, folks. If you want a better quality snack for game day or just any day, and so many sports seasons just getting underway, NFL football, college football, we've got NBA returning in a month. Be sure you check out what they have to offer at iowasmokehouse.com. They offer a full lineup sure to satisfy you and your family and friends' snacking needs. Their thick and tender cuts of beef jerky, their flavorful meat sticks, their delicious steak bites, and their ketchups, their barbecue sauces. You'll never need to look anywhere else for game day. Tasting is believing. See how that's the case at iowasmokehouse.com and use that code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order. You'll get free shipping with $50 orders. Again, use that code Hawkeyes at iowasmokehouse.com for 15% off your order. Get it shipped right to your door. Also, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. I talked to Brad earlier today. His team helping a friend of mine get a great quote on auto insurance. They'll help you get a great quote on any type of insurance, but they're offering great low auto rates as of August 1st, improved rate coverage, and so much more. So many great opportunities for you to save money on auto, boat, life, medical, all these different types of insurance through your local State Farm agent down in Des Moines. Brad Van Meter and his Fleur Drive office at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines. Visit him online, bradvanmeter.com. Get your free quote, or call him first thing Monday, 515-256-6480. Brad Van Meter at State Farm. All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call line. We'll go with James first because James was literally first after Alex. James, welcome back to our show. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call line.
How you doing today? Or tonight, I guess. Late tonight, but
bring a little life here, James.
I'm the same tone. I'm the same tone either way. But I'm ecstatic with the fact that they won and how some of the pieces looked. Obviously, I know there's some parts of the game obviously that you could have fixed, right? But one thing I want to shout out is obviously Mark had his best game as a Hawk. I don't think that's a question, right? But after the bad throw to Vonnegut or Tortworth, where he missed Ortworth bad, right? He could have held his head down, right, and could have, let that get to him, right? And he didn't. He came out there and still did what he needed to do on those last couple of drives to help us win the game, right? And that shows a true leader, a true guy that, I know I made a mistake, but also I did what I needed to do to get us over the hump, if that makes sense.
Great question. Great segue, Don. That's a huge play in this game. It could have been detrimental to Iowa's chances of winning the game. I want to ask you about it. That was late in this one. Iowa had a chance with that play to take a 7-point lead, potentially with an extra point make. They end up settling for 3. And then it felt really bad once Rutgers responded with a long touchdown drive. It was hard to see on replay whether Mark Gronowski's throw to Zach Ortworth was tipped. It was obviously a great call. The defense was nowhere near Zach Ortworth on that side of the field. It was hard to tell whether Gronowski just short-armed it. It was obviously a dirt ball, or whether it was tipped at the line of scrimmage. But, they did show Gronowski visibly frustrated after that play. Talk us through what Lester was saying to his quarterback after that seemingly big miss.
Well, it was 3rd and 5 on the +8. It's what we call a hide play. Tight end actually shows block for a split second. Meanwhile, the receiver coming from the other side of the formation is running a drive route across the field, and then the tight end slips out on a drive route of his own. He was wide open, of course. I simply make this note: underthrown, incomplete, step into the throw. He did not transfer any weight to his front foot. And a good way to explain it: sometimes you have a guy so open, you'd like to think that figuratively you can just hand it to him. You can't ever hand it to him. If you try to hand it to him, that's when you come way up short with the throw. So step into the throw, make the throw. Don't try to lob it to him. Just throw it like you normally would play The way you play catch is the way you throw it. Just throw it with the normal. You don't have to throw him a fastball. He's wide open. But just throw it to him. Don't try to hand it to him. And if you just transfer your weight, you'll get the throw. He threw off his back foot, didn't step into his throw. Ball came up short. And to answer your question about the possible tip, if he would have stepped into the throw, I think the ball would have come off even a little bit higher.
Right. Yeah, that was my observation. Even if the ball was partially tipped, he's got to get that ball. There was nobody around. You got to get that ball high enough. And I didn't notice the footwork like you did because you're a QB's guy, but you got to get that ball high enough so that there's no chance that it is tipped. So either way, to me, that's on Gronowski.
Well, speaking
of he was footed with his feet. Step into his throw.
Well, speaking of high balls, the one he threw to Kamari, the one he was rolling out, he threw the dude. I don't know if it was a linebacker or it was a DN that was coming out to try to cut him off. He threw it over his head. He got it to Kamari, and Kamari took off for a couple 5 or 10 after that. That was a play where he did really well in that aspect of the game too, and that kind of was a big play too because I think that was third down when that happened as well.
Yeah, you might recall the analyst for the game is a former coach, a West Coast coach. I can't remember where he coached.
Oregon. He coached at Oregon. Mark Helford coached at Oregon.
He's a good coach. He knows a lot about football. He made the comment that might have been the toughest throw that Mark had all night. He's running left, and he's got to get the ball up and over to a receiver that's running further to the left. Couldn't have thrown it much better. I was fearful for a second that it might be overthrown, but let's give Kamari credit for making a nice play on the throw too.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't want to see some of the injuries. Obviously, hope Jazz is okay because I know the running back room is beat up a little bit, obviously. Xavier Williams didn't play today, and Brevin had a couple carries last week, but he's not really in the rotation, right, compared to everybody else, right? But with Jazz being hurt, it's still good to see how Kamari played. Jazz played well when he was in there, and I think didn't Nate McNeil get the carry when they had the face mask?
Yes. Nate McNeil did have a nice carry in the face mask.
And I believe that was his one and only carry, right?
Yeah, he was on the field several other times. They lined him out wide a couple of times, and obviously Jazz Patterson. It was reported by Fox that he was at least good to go back out and give it a shot, but I don't believe he saw the field again.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
So they needed him. I mean, you're down, you're down 2 guys now, Xavier Williams and Jazz Patterson. So this happens at the running back position. You can't have enough depth, Don. I mean,
that's the beauty of football. I think there are 22 starters, offense and defense, and yet there are at least 65 players on that trip that play offense and defense, and you don't know for sure who the heroes might be. Nobody would have projected maybe that Dayton would have the play of the game, and yet he did. And the bottom line, you got to be ready when your coaches turn to you, when you have a chance to make a play for your teammates. The guys that you really appreciate are ones that invariably tend to come through. And I'm happy for Dayton. I'm sure it's been frustrating for him to not earn more playing time up until now, but I give him credit for being ready at a very key time in the game.
Anything else, James?
No, I was just going to say one question. I'll get off and listen to this question just so you can get to the other callers, but one question I really have, and I know Don's more of an offensive guy, but what was the adjustment that kind of slowed them down? Obviously, I think Ian Strong's an NFL wide receiver. He's really good, right? But what was one of the adjustments that kind of slowed them down in the second half defensively that we did to them, if you noticed anything different?
Well, I know one thing that happened was when we did have the lead and the clock was against them, we started playing a lot of 2-man then, 5 under man, 2 deep safeties in the back end, and then playing games with our other 4 guys, the 4 rushers, and that caused them problems because they didn't have any receivers open early on in the routes because of that 500-man principle. And, of course, the man defenders know they have help over the top. And in the meantime, we're hitting up the quarterback. I made a comment to one of our former players at halftime. I said, we got to find a way to make the quarterback uncomfortable because if we can't get to him, we're not going to beat him. And we did hit him up the second half. I think it made a difference. You saw a few more errant throws and balls that fell incomplete, and that bothers any quarterback.
Yeah. Just a little bit of pressure, you can get that pocket disrupted, Don. It can do wonders, right? And how about this, getting him, there was a play, I believe it was first drive of the third quarter. I think I have to go back and look at my notes, but they forced a sack. Llewellyn was a free rusher, and that was on 1st down and 10, and that it ended up a 3-and-out. Totally disrupted that drive. And I made the comment at the time, there have been too many really positive 1st down calls for Rutgers and not enough negative plays. And that they had more of those negative plays on early down situations. Sounds overly simplistic, Don, but boy, it makes a difference.
Really does. I think at one time they were 6 for 6 on 3rd down.
Yeah.
One reason most of those were short yardage. At the worst, they were 3rd and 4.
Yeah, very few 3rd downs, and when they were very manageable 3rd downs. Brian, thank you for the super chat. No more no boys, as ugly as it seemed. Bend don't break holds true. Great job by the offense tonight. I will say the defense bent and broke several times. There was breaking that happened tonight, Don. I don't think Phil Parker would say bend don't break is giving up 14 in the first. Well, how many did they give up in the first quarter? 14 in the first quarter, 21 in the first half. And they were all true, like, touchdown drives. They weren't short fields. They weren't defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns. 21 true offensive drives and a lot of efficiency for a guy in Nathan Kaliak-Maniston who had been really efficient heading into tonight. I warned people about this heading into the game. I was confident heading into this week, but I warned people he is heading into this game 62 of 85 for 73%. He's one of the more underrated guys, I'll say, not just in this conference, but in the country, the way he steps up in the pocket. And I don't remember, maybe late a couple of those balls, he didn't miss many receivers tonight. Like he throws a crisp ball and it's on target.
Well, that's why you got to make him uncomfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
And that made a difference. Here's a good comment, Corey. 3 Rutgers possessions, 3 TDs.
Yeah.
That's
breaking a little bit too much. That's bending a little bit too much, I should say.
I think of it this way. We gave up 21 points in less than 18 minutes.
Yeah.
The other 42 minutes, they scored 1 touchdown.
Good adjustments and getting to halftime, Don, without being behind. I mean, it would have been great to have the lead, but getting to halftime tied in spite of the struggles defensively was huge. Lemansky, thank you for the super chat. He adds, Tim Lester was sharp. Couldn't agree more. Thought it was one of maybe his best call game as a play caller to this point. I know that's maybe living in the moment a bit, Don, but man, it's hard to think of a game last year that would rival this as far as because it felt like he was so limited last year. And I'm not saying he doesn't share some blame in that, but his first year at the helm with the passing game, it was so limited. We finally saw that open up today against a solid team. I don't know how good Rutgers is going to be at season end, but it's still a Big Ten team on the road with a raucous crowd in a tight situation. And we saw Tim Lester call all nice plays and Mark Gronowski execute them.
Well, I said based on I'd seen a lot of game 1 for Rutgers and a little bit of game 2. And as you know, those are above average MAC teams. They impressed me with their offense because Ohio had trouble with them. And let's not forget, you gave Ohio State a few problems too. They may win the MAC.
And by the way, one thing I didn't mention to you, I mentioned that Mark Rogers. Ohio beat West Virginia. I'm not saying West Virginia is a great Big 12 team, but they did beat a Big 12 team. Ohio did go on right after losing to Rutgers. They went and beat West Virginia. They had to play Rutgers, West Virginia, and Ohio State back to back to back.
And if I'm not mistaken, West Virginia beat Pitt.
That's also true.
Yeah.
That's also true. So transitive property, but it's notable. Joe, thank you for the super chat. He says, here's a little love to get the shaver started tonight. And I'm already looking down to one of our super chatters, and I'm kind of feeling a little bittersweet already, Don. You'll see why in a little bit. But thank you so much for that, Joe. Let's go to our call line. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse line with Coach Don Patterson, who's on the line.
Hi, morning.
Okay, well, got cut off there. Let's see. Let's go to our next caller. We have got Donuts of Doom. 750 Donuts of Doom. I love your username.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks for calling our Iowa Smokehouse line.
I think that one other aspect is that Rutgers couldn't run the ball really, so they were one-dimensional, and that was a big part of the game. So, they could adjust and just be very aggressive on defense, play that two-man because they were just going to throw. So, the other thing I would say is that you couldn't pick a better game to warm up for Indiana than this one.
Interesting. That's a great comment, Don. I don't know how much I haven't watched a whole lot of Indiana. I know they've played absolutely nobody to this point. They've played an absolutely atrocious schedule. That all changes tomorrow because they play your boy Brett Bielema and the Illini, Don. But your thoughts on that comment from 750 Donuts of Doom in regards to kind of warming up for your homecoming date with the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I think it's a decent preparation. It's an unusual Rutgers team because their strength is actually on the offensive side of the ball. I made a comment earlier in the week. It's really strength against strength. That was my perception going in. Our strongest unit in recent weeks has been our defense, and yet their strongest unit is their offense. And they got the best of us in the first half, but we made up for it in the second half.
Yeah, I feel like Rutgers saw what Indiana did last year and said, well, we can do that. The other thing I would say is that if Howard doesn't make that catch, we're probably looking at this game very differently.
Absolutely.
I tend to agree. I mean, and that's what we've been waiting for Iowa's passing game to make explosive plays. And that's why it was so frustrating early on that first drive of the game. After Weegan gets a touchdown, Rutgers responds, and that's a beautiful throw to that left boundary to Sam Phillips, and to see him drop it. And you kind of just – I know I'm sure there was a collective sigh within the fan base because it felt like these are the same issues we've had. Even when quarterbacks have put the ball on target to receivers, guys have just not been able to pull them in. So to see Dayton Howard and Jacob Gill made a nice sideline catch in that second half. Sam Phillips made up for it. He had at least one explosive play tonight. We're going to run through the stats. But, yeah, Don, I mean, we've talked about the explosive play for Dayton Howard, but receivers as a whole, a couple of drops early. How would you rate the wideouts tonight?
Oh, gosh, I hadn't really thought that much about it. Sam was not much of a factor tonight. I don't know how many snaps he got. Maybe in part because of the drop, he didn't get as many snaps as normal. There's another guy that didn't figure out a lot was Gill, but that was a key comeback for a first down.
Yes.
That was a nice play. He also drew a DPI, as I recall.
And real quick, just so you're aware, let me give you the stats real quick, receiving stats. So I bet you wouldn't be able to guess who the leading receiver from a catches perspective was tonight. I bet you neither one of you can guess who it was. Go ahead, Don. For Iowa.
I'm not sure. Good question.
Large.
Who again?
Large.
He's guessing large. No, you know who it was? It was Kamari Moulton. It was actually Kamari Moulton out of the backfield. 3 catches, 21 yards. But Ortworth gets 2 for 30. One explosive play for Zach Ortworth, a 24-yard gain. Caden Weegan had 2 catches for 20 yards. A 17-yard is his long. Dayton Howard has the 1 catch for 42 yards. Sam Phillips, 1 catch, 25 yards, did have the drop. DJ Vanami has 1 catch for 21 yards, another explosive play. Terrell Washington, 1 catch for 16 yards. Jacob Gill had 1 catch for 11 yards. And just 1 target for Seth Anderson, who, by the way, last week had 2 touchdowns, had been maybe the most consistent volume guy in that room to this point. So is that a pick your poison thing? I don't want to get ahead of myself, Don, but is that a good sign that we're seeing different guys getting the ball each week, or would you like to see some level of consistency from guys like Seth Anderson, Jacob Gill? Because I'd
like to see at least 3 guys with the consistency because we like to play with 3 receivers at one time.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to become really consistent with play. And talking about Sam's drop, you heard me say before, 1 drop might be the difference in the game. That's how important they are. That whole argument about being at 95% rather than 90. One receiver is twice the other, right? Because I judge them by the ones they drop, not the ones they catch.
You know, you can't help but be just super impressed by Rutgers receivers. And they caught everything, super contested. You can't blame the coverage, but I'm just still left going, why can't Iowa get receivers like that? If Rutgers can get those receivers, same thing looking at Indiana. So I'm always a little bit left going, okay, I understand, we've got to go out and find these. And we have our guys and they're doing what they can do, but those Rutgers receivers were very impressive. I left my 3-word headline with Chad Lystico is recruit Rutgers receivers. Could you imagine if we had those NFL caliber receivers like we did with DJK and McNutt, what difference that would make? So I don't know. I just feel like I have a sense, it seemed like, and correct me, but Don, Hayden, he was happy to have the guys who had the swagger. If you're going to have receivers, they've got to have swagger. You want cocky receivers, you want cocky defensive backs, you want lunch pail linemen. And it seems like Coach Ferentz, he loves the solid, lunch pail, blue collar and everything. But, we want the swagger guys on the skill positions. So whatever they need to do, I say go get those swag guys who'll be those who say, I'm going to be the man. I want every ball. I'm going to catch it. You're draped all over me like the Rutgers receivers. So that's just my critique of the program and what would take them to the next level. Finding those studs, paying for it.
Well, appreciate your call, sir. And always enjoy talking to you. Keep up the username swag on your end as well.
You got it. Dress for the job you want.
You got it, buddy. Thank you, sir. All right. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've always been impressed with Rutgers as far as skill position talent. Don, say what you want about Maryland and Rutgers, those two teams that were added. One from the ACC, one from the old Big East. Those guys they've had some good skill position players. I mean, there's a guy that's been playing tailback for the Chiefs for a while, right? Who's from the Scarlet Knights. I think of a guy named Crookshank, who's really productive for Rutgers. Who am I missing there? Who's the guy that?
I can't think of the name of the guy with the Chiefs, but he's good.
There's a guy with the Bears now too, right? Somebody's going to be able to tell me.
Matter of fact, I was talking to a Bear scout this week in practice. He mentioned that back that they're happy to have him. He's doing a good job for him as a rookie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember his name either, but they've had good backs. Matter of fact, I thought their back would be a bigger factor tonight than what he was. Maybe it was because they really didn't really assign much value to running the ball. In part because we controlled it. I did say during the week, Corey, if you're down to two things: outrush Rutgers and win on turnovers. And we did it. And I made the comment: if you just do those two things, you win about 85% of the time.
Super chat here from Hugo, Maine. I don't like doing the wave on the road. Work tonight. Excuse me. Had to sneeze. Hugh, what does this mean? I don't like doing the wave on the road. What does that mean?
I'm talking about the end of the first quarter wave.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with doing the wave on the road? I guess I don't quite.
To me, it's kind of a cool thing. I don't know what they were doing with their drones and all that stuff, but I think it's kind of neat when we're on the road and they also honor the children that are back here in Iowa City.
And I would guess that's a reflection of who their head coach is. I know Shiano has a lot of respect for Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. So let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse line. And by the way, we've got a couple of spots open here, folks. You can call in 515-635-1601 or dial in via StreamYard. Well, actually, before we get to Vincent, you're next. Let's see. By the way, if you leave an insulting super chat, your super chat won't be read. So, again, apologize. not really. Kevin, thank you for this super chat, and this is just a foreshadowing of things to come from Kevin, I believe. So, Kevin, appreciate your donation, your support. Richard, thank you for the super chat. Mark finally turned the corner tonight. He needed the confidence and now is off the charts. Whole team is behind him now. Corners struggled, however. Got to get better and gain confidence. So, or he should say, got better and gained confidence. And I thought TJ Hall was pretty good throughout. I'll go back and watch this game, Don. I know you will as well. There was so much that happened. Yeah. So,
let me mention this, Corey. I think that the hidden value to Mark is those hard yards he gets in the running game. We run him a lot in short yardage. I think he just maybe had 50 yards or so, but in general, they were short yardage situations or goal line situations. And believe me, it's a lot more difficult to defend someone when there's a chance they'll use their quarterback as a runner. That's one thing we didn't have to worry about with Rutgers. They were going to think long and hard before they asked their quarterback to run.
Absolutely. And folks, before we get to our next caller, a reminder that Big Grove Brewery is the official craft brewery of the Hawkeyes and the official watch party headquarters of the Hawkeyes. And of course, whether you're at the game or you're at home, you can enjoy their Easy Eddie, their Citrus Surfer, their neighborhood beer at any of their locations: Cedar Rapids, Solon, Des Moines. Omaha's opening this month. What did I miss? Iowa City. What a great location there in Iowa City. Award-winning game day menu. And, of course, warm hospitality from our friends over at Big Grove Brewery. Big Grove Brewery, the official craft beer, craft brewery, and official watch party headquarters of your Hawkeyes and from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit their website at www.biggrove.com. Also, RTI Threads, shop the official gear of Aaron Graves, Zach Lutmer, Jacob Gill, Carson Shire. I thought, Don, just a side note real quick, and then we'll continue with our plug. Zach Lutmer got burned early, but boy, he made some big plays. He's a guy who I don't think we've talked about yet. He made some big plays in pass coverage. It felt like he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder after getting burned in that first half. And Aaron Graves is becoming a handful. I know he's not gotten home a lot. But there's a lot of focus on figuring out a way to stop him. Of course, Jacob Gill has been steady Eddie. Carson also struggled in coverage early. They got him isolated a time or two, but he had a big numbers day, Don. I believe Carson was the one defender. Let me confirm this real quick. Carson Shire was the one Iowa defender who totaled double-digit tackles, had 10 tackles on the night,
right,
along with a sack. So a credit to Carson Shire. But, folks, you can support the cause here from the Hawkeye of the Storm and our great sponsor, RTI Threads, by visiting their website, their NIL division of their website, at rtithreads.com/NIL. Get your Aaron Graves, Zach Lutmer, Jacob Gill, Carson Shire merch. And we're giving away some Carson Shire merch tonight, actually. So after we're done with the show, and I guess it'll be in the morning, right? Because we're almost midnight. We'll add up the final score predictions on social media. We've been doing giveaways every single week prior to the game. You just have to guess a score, or at least close. The closest result for each Hawkeye game will win merch. Credit to courtesy of RTI Threads and their RTI Hawkeye athletes. Again, rtithreads.com/NIL. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse line. Vincent been with us. Vincent, thank you for being patient. Appreciate you calling our show.
No problem, gentlemen. Good evening. I'll just kind of start out with, or to answer your question about the two other backs from Rutgers, it was Monungai and Pacheco, if I remember the names right.
Monungai was the name I was thinking of, and obviously Pacheco for Kansas City.
Yep. And Don, boy, you were not kidding. I hadn't really caught Rutgers a whole lot, or at all, prior to tonight's game, and you were spot on. They have certainly improved offensively, and boy, I thought we might get run out of the stadium those first three drives watching Rutgers. So I'm glad you were still encouraged with what we saw versus UMass and that transition over to tonight. It was nice to see us come out of the gate throwing, trying to go downfield. Now our receivers, I'm sure, Don, you'd probably say the same thing. If you want the ball, you need to come down with it. Even Seth Anderson's drop, I know it was contested, but that was still in his breadbasket or still in his wheelhouse to bring in, he's got to bring those in as well. But I liked us coming out of the gate as we did.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I agree. I mean, I see the comments in the chat about the Rutgers receivers. I was really impressed. And Don, I'm with Vincent a little bit. I have a ton of respect for you and your knowledge. I predicted an Iowa win by 6, but I predicted Iowa would hold them to the teens. You did not think Iowa would hold them to the teens. So
yep.
I credit to you on that. I couldn't get past the fact that I've never seen Iowa play Rutgers where Rutgers has scored 20 points or more. This was real quick. This was a crazy stat. This is probably what you're about to bring up, Don. This was brought up early in the game, but in the first quarter, the commentators brought up that it had been 6 years since Iowa gave up back-to-back touchdowns to start a game. And I don't have the other stat in mind, but I believe it was early second quarter when Rutgers hit 21. It was the most points Rutgers had ever scored against Iowa early in that second quarter.
It was more than the other 4 games combined.
More than the other.
They only scored 17 points in the 4 games.
Amazing.
Yeah, they mentioned that. Yep.
So no, I couldn't. I think we're on the same page there, Vincent.
The other thing I wanted to touch on, I know your prior caller said it, but to me, and I'm sure you guys, when you think about it, would agree, this was a perfect game for us to at least kind of catapult into what's coming up next. You look at Indiana, the schedule that we have coming up, just the type of game, the type of offense that we're going to face. This was a perfect opportunity for us to kind of wipe our eyes and say, hey, look, we need to make sure that we're playing defense or playing good defense, because this is what's going to be coming down the road for the next teams that we face. So I was very happy to see, hey, look, open your eyes. This is what it's going to be like. This is Big Ten play. So that was a great opportunity for us, especially on the defensive end, to make sure that we say, hey, look, let's get prepared. We're going to see this quite a bit, especially facing Oregon, especially facing Indiana, Penn State. Great eye opener for us. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely. I do know this too. With college students, they may or may not appreciate a Saturday game as much as a Friday night game. I think they probably had better student participation on Friday night than they would have had even on Saturday night. Let's face it, if it's not far into the weekend, students might be more likely to go home for the weekend.
Right.
But on Friday night, they'll stick around and party and then go home on Saturday.
No, agreed. One other point I wanted to make, or 2 things, Corey, and I'll hop off so your other callers can get on. I'm sorry. I know Drew Stevens, he has a good leg or a strong leg. Consistency has to be better, at least accuracy. I know you might disagree with me there, but he's got to make those.
Real quick, Vincent, show me numbers-wise how he's been inconsistent. I'm just saying, show me numbers-wise how he's been inconsistent. If you can show me numbers, because that's really all that matters, right? If his numbers aren't good enough, his numbers aren't good enough. But I don't believe he's been inconsistent.
No, it's not. Here's how I'll put it. I watched their Tuesday presser, like when the players are available for media. And Corey, I think you've been at those too. But I've watched Drew's interviews, and he's so cocky in his interviews almost that he's almost like, I'm this good, I'm that good. He doesn't want to say it, but he says it.
So wait a minute, real quick, just to clarify, in line with what our earlier caller said, this isn't just you. So we want DBs that are cocky, corners that are cocky, receivers that are cocky, but kickers that are humble. Got it.
No,
I'm just saying,
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'll say this, and I played the game. If you're going to be that arrogant when it comes to your interviews with the media, then you better damn well deliver when you get out in the field. And I'm not trying to be too brash about it, but if you're humble about it and you have some misses, people aren't going to be critical when you do miss those that you should be making. And this is not a kick. It was a 38-yard field goal that I'm not going to say he shanked, but he missed wide.
Real quick, it was a 40-yard field goal. But let me just real quick. Freshman year, 24 of 24 extra points, 16 of 18 on field goals. Struggled, you could say, some in his second year. He was 18 of 26. He had that weird stretch. Last year was 20 of 23, 40 of 40 on extra points. That's one of the best numbers percentage-wise in the country. And this year, prior to tonight, he entered the game 6 of 7 on field goals, 10 of 11 on extra points. Those are pretty good numbers, Vincent. Like, compare that
All
with
I'm saying is
national
this.
kickers.
If you're going to be that cocky when you're talking with the media,
What's he
back
supposed
it up,
to do? Make
back
every
it
kick?
up on the field. Back it up on the field. Don't go into
he
your
is.
interviews.
Well,
Okay, he's making some long field goals of 50 plus. But I'm just an opinion, and I'm not trying to get on your bad side. But
no, you're not on my bad side.
My take is, if you're going to have your interviews where you say, I don't want to say I'm that good, but I am that good, then when you get out there on the field to kick a 40-yard field goal, you better make it, because otherwise people are going to kind of razz you a little bit next time you're having an interview.
Real quick, but every kicker has missed a 40-yard field goal in their career, Vincent.
Like I said, for me, I've seen his interviews, and as cocky as he comes off, when you get out there, make the darn field goal.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
You have every right to your opinion. Don, you want to say something about that?
Well, I can say things to support both sides. If I wanted to support the caller, I would remind him 1 week ago we blocked the PAT also.
Right.
Yep.
I just, like I said, I just ran through how his numbers as a Hawkeye on extra points. He's like 120 of 122. So I'll take those numbers.
He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's a good kicker. And do I want him out there if the game's on the line and we have to make one? Absolutely. But I guess I kind of come back to a little bit of humility when it comes to.
I can appreciate humility. I just think it's humorous when you have people calling in earlier that say they love the cocky DBs and the cocky quarterbacks, and then you're like, this guy's too cocky.
No, I agree with the swagger stuff. Like, when it comes to skill position, you want that guy that wants the ball. Like,
so since he's not a skill position player, he's got to stay humble, but skill guys can be cocky. We can get off this.
No. Let me give you an example. So have you seen Drew Stevens' interviews? Not to get on a tangent, but have you seen his interviews?
Yeah, I've interviewed Drew Stevens. Yeah,
he's a bit cocky. He's a bit cocky. Would you agree?
I guess. I don't know. You know, Cade McNamara was really, 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 really cocky. Have you ever listened to Cade McNamara talk?
Yeah, I have, but I never took
quarterback. It's okay, right?
Let me give you a flip side. We have a kick returner, punt returner who's an All-American from last year, correct?
Everybody's different personality. I don't want to hear about Cade.
But that's my point.
I don't want to hear about. I don't want to hear about that.
Corey, that's my point.
I don't care.
Doesn't come on the media. He doesn't come in the media and say, "Hey, look, I'm this good." And he's cocky about his interviews. He's a very humble guy. He goes about his business and just produces on the field. All I'm saying for Drew is, if you're going to have that kind of demeanor with your interviews, deliver on the field. That's all I'm saying. Caden doesn't do it. But anyway, I digress. Let me move on. I apologize. I wasn't trying to have anything get heated. But no,
heated. These are good debates, but I think it's. Listen, I absolutely respect where you're coming from, and people have heard me talk about other sports, and I always talk about my favorite guys in the NBA are the ones that are oftentimes the more humble guys, like Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, or at least guys that appeared that way. And guys that rub me the wrong way are Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Steph Curry, and those guys. So I get it. I totally understand. I just think that if he wasn't kicking well, that'd be one thing. But I don't want to hear anecdotal evidence about how he missed a 40-yarder today and he missed a PAT last week. He's been really good. He's right now, based on everything I've seen, NFL scouts say he's probably going to be drafted next year, which is, if he continues on the path he is, which is really hard for a kicker. Yes, it's partially because he's got a big leg. He has a chance at breaking the all-time Iowa record for most kicks made of 50-plus yard. That's a pretty unbelievable number in and of itself. I don't know what his numbers like all-time on the scoring list are or all-time points scored. He's going to be getting pretty close to the Nate Kadings of the world. But I understand I totally appreciate what you're saying. And look, that was a big miss. It could have come back to bite him. But I will say, you brought up Caden Weegan. You know, another thing that could have come back to bite him is his inability to know where he is on the field at the end
Yep.
of the first half.
You're
He
right.
cuts back in with 2 seconds and basically kills Iowa's chances of getting a Drew Stevens field goal attempt. That cost him 3 points, could have easily cost him the game as well. So listen, there was lots of mistakes made by by everybody. Drew Stevens is one, Caden Weegan is another, and other guys as well.
No, and your point's well taken. I right at the end of the half, I thought about that very thing. Caden had the opportunity to step out of bounds with 2, maybe at least a second left on the clock to kick a field goal. But this is why I always tune into you. This is why I always call in. It's because you always give your honest take. And even if it's in a disagreement with the caller, you're still going to give it. And that's why I love calling it.
Well, that's why I thought it was humorous when you said you didn't want this to get heated. I'm like, man,
No,
how
like
did you watch me? It doesn't get heated. It's not getting heated.
not like not literal heated, but I wasn't trying to like stay on it too long because there's a lot of good takeaways from this game. And I know that other callers want to call in. The last thing I just want to say is I saw Kirk's interview at the end of the game. You could tell he was very pleased with how they were able to open things up or just how they did or executed on offense. And you can kind of tell he was elated with, hey, and he even said it, I wasn't expecting the score, but boy, I'm sure glad we came out in the winning end and especially winning by 10. So it's nice to see that from Kirk. And it kind of gives you some relief as a fan. Like maybe he's not always hindering us on offense. Maybe he's coming out of his shell a little bit. So anyway, we're just glad to see that. But as always, Corey, Don, thank you guys so much for the platform. It is absolutely awesome to call in. And Don, same thing with you, taking the time this late to stay up with us as fans, to take calls on Corey's platform. Gentlemen, have a good night, and thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Spencer.
Happy to do so.
Always enjoy talking to you. And I know we got a bunch of people who are trying to get through on the call line.
Corey, let me be with
Putting you on hold here. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, on the subject of field goals, let's not forget that Rutgers blocked a field goal too. But do our listeners remember what happened shortly before they blocked the field goal?
Yeah, it was a stupid penalty on their part, a false.
That 5-yard penalty made all the difference.
What was the
left hash, they backed up 5 yards.
What?
Because they backed up 5 yards, it was a 37-yard attempt, and only then would it have hit the upright. If they were 5 yards further closer to the uprights, it would have gone through.
What was the penalty for?
I'm not sure. I wrote down a legal procedure. It was a procedural call, maybe on the center. I think maybe he hesitated when he snapped. But that 5 yard made a difference on that particular field goal.
All right. Let's see. I got to get these super chats in. Zach. I hope Kevin's still here. Zach says, Kirk played to win tonight. Did not play to lose. Love the aggression at the end of the first half. Mark played well. Offense looks strong. O-line. Defense got exposed a little. Special teams killed it. In general, special teams were good. But, man, we just got done talking about, no question, 100-yard return, 104-yard return to start the game, huge, Don, right? And that helped him stick around, because as bad as the defense played in that first half, they were still hanging around because they got that quick 7-0 start, and the offense offense or defense, neither units had to see the field before they were up 7-0. But then you also had the missed field goal by Drew Stevens from 40. You have the Caden Weegan situation, and that's either on Weegan. I talked to you at halftime about this. That's either on Weegan or that's on the coaching staff for not making it clear. There was 15 seconds left on the first half when he's getting the punt. And yeah, maybe you assume they're not going to punt to Weegan, but the coaching staff has to make abundantly clear to Weegan, you got 15 seconds. If that ball comes to you, if you can get to the 40, or I'd even say the 45, give Drew, because Drew can make it from 62, no problem. If you can get to the 65, get your butt down. And if you go back and look at the tape, Don, you did that.
I have.
He got all the way to the 25, and he still could have stepped out of bounds and stopped the clock and had at least a second or two on the clock.
At that point, we would have been caught. Here's my observation. For sure, he could have run out of bounds on the plus 40, and we would have had 2 or 3 seconds left.
He had. Oh no! Well, real quick, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. He at least could have gone out at the 35 to 33. It wasn't even the 40, Don. We'll
The
go
point
back.
is, you don't want to risk it being on 1 or 0. You follow me? You're playing on the road.
I follow you, Don, but the point is he cut back and wasted everything, and we had double goose egg.
But the point is, we had a little wind at our back. We know that Drew's got a big leg. If we make it to the 40, we're okay.
No, we're on the same page on this. I'm just saying at a worst case scenario, he waits too long and gets out with 1 second left. But instead, he totally doesn't even. It's like he's just playing for obviously, he was just playing for the touchdown. I just don't know where the awareness is there. And that's a question that would be in a win. It would be a fair question to LeVar Woods or Kirk Ferentz. Did anybody instruct Caden Weegan there with 15 seconds to get down once you hit a certain part on the field? Because you'd have to expect that if he's able to field that punt with 15 seconds where he was on the field, that he'd be able to get to the 40 or 45-yard line with time still on the clock. Without him having to go look at the clock, he should be able to anticipate that, hey, I've got a few seconds here. I can get down safely. I don't have to play for broke for the touchdown. That could have easily come back to bite him. It did not.
Let me say this, Corey. As a coach, I used to make a checklist of unusual occurrences on a football field during a game. And when I introduced that what if to the players, I might say, now the odds of this happening are very slim. It might happen once our entire season, but let's talk about how we react if it does in fact happen. And you're wise to cover those kind of things, because invariably if you don't cover them, sure as hell it will happen, and you'll end up with egg on your face simply because you hadn't covered it.
And by the way, folks, thank you, Zach, for that super chat. We did not mention this yet. We'll mention it now. I previewed it earlier. Our RTI Threads player of the game, I went back and forth on this, Don, but had to give it to Mark Gronowski. 12 of 18 through the air, 186 yards, but 13 tough carries for 55 yards, 3 touchdowns. Don, I could have went a couple of different places, but this was hard because this wasn't a perfect game from anyone. Caden had the big play to start the game. I thought it was a bit of a gaffe at the end of the first half. Don't know the ins and outs of what happened behind the scenes. You could maybe go with somebody up front. It's hard for me in game to evaluate guys like Logan Jones and Jennings Dunker and Bo Stevens and those guys.
Right.
Ultimately, went with Mark Gronowski. Just your thoughts on Mark as our RTI Threads player of the game, and you brought up his toughness. Boy, it helps having a guy who can pick up extra yardage, and it opens the playbook when you run empty. The QB draw, we're seeing that a lot more. Obviously, RPO, it opens things. Had the RPO for the touchdown there in the second half as well. Mark Gronowski walks in untouched.
Yeah, think of it this way, Corey. We had yards per attempt. I guess we don't have it here. On our 12 receptions, how many attempts did he have? Do you know offhand?
Are you talking about pass attempts? He had 18 pass attempts.
12, yeah, thank you. So think of it this way. 18 pass attempts produced 186 yards. That's 10.3 per attempt.
Right.
We were all impressed with Rutgers' passing game. Think of it this way. 40 attempts produced 330 yards. That's just 8.25 yards per attempt. The more efficient pass offense was Iowa, especially when you factor in 1 interception versus none, especially when you factor in sacks. And let's face it, I guarantee you there are a lot of Rutgers fans that wish teams wouldn't be so bold as to play 2-man on 3rd and long. And we wouldn't be so bold as to do it if they had a threat at quarterback, because you can run those underneath defenders off and run Q draw, and it's not hard for 5 linemen to account for 4 down guys. So you're able to get the quarterback on the run without any problem at all, and you can even convert on 3rd and 10 maybe versus 2-man with a QB draw. And that's not an option for Rutgers, because Cadillac Mattis is not the runner that Mark is.
He is not. And the stats indicated that heading into this game. I think he had 1 solid run in that first half, maybe. But, yeah, Gronowski runs like a tight end, Don. I keep saying that. He runs like a good running tight end, like a TJ Hawkinson type of tight end.
Right.
And that's a weapon and will continue to be a weapon. You hope he can hold up, Don. But, boy, he's he's got a different gear physically. I compare him to a tight end not just because of how he looks when he runs, but also like he looks for contact. He's not afraid of contact. And I know you don't like that so much because you're afraid of his health, but
Well, I don't like it on early downs. You've heard me say that.
No.
If he has a chance to protect himself, I wish he would do it. But in his defense, if we're struggling to run the ball, he feels even on first and second down, he better strain to get all he can.
RTI Threads, player of the game, Mark Granowski. Okay, here we go. Kevin is determined to make sure I'm a clean-shaven person. So Kevin is forcing me, not against my will. I made the goal. Kevin's helping. He fulfilled it, and now I am forced to give up the facial hair that some people say is non-existent. Some people say is a bad look for me. Some people like it, but it doesn't matter. I've vowed to give it up tonight. So I'm trying to get in touch. If we can get our guy Kyle to fill in as our main host, I'll be more than happy to do this while we're live on the air. I'm not going to be taking the camera into my bathroom. Okay.
I do have one concern for you, Corey. How does your bride feel about this? I hope that's not going to put you in the doghouse with her.
No, I think she's more than okay with it. I think she's probably wanted me to lower that number for a while. I think she's ready for a change as well. So, anyways, Kevin, I'll read your super chat, but thank you so much. He says, let's get this done. I've been listening to the show for years. Corey and Don do a great job. Big fan from Utah. Thank you so much, Kevin. And I don't recognize your name, so you've been listening for years. Please don't be a stranger to the live chat. Thank you so much for your super chat, your generosity. It is much appreciated. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson. Who's on the line?
Dick from Jackson, Michigan.
Hey, Dick, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Hey, a couple of points. One of the things, I don't think it's been brought up, but because I missed some of the discussion tonight, but Phil Parker, the first half, he very seldom, if ever, blitzes. He plays that four-man front, and he feels out what they're going to be doing. Second half, in the the start of the second half, he blitzed quite a bit, and it's just that's how he sets up for the second half of the one other point that Don, that pass in the fourth quarter to the tight end who was wide open on the 2-yard line.
Yes.
I replayed that pass, and the defensive lineman, I think they said he was 6'3". His hand barely grazed it, but it was on the back of the ball. He didn't get the whole ball. He just got toward the back, and ever so slightly, that pointed it down. And I think it would have been low, but it would have been catchable because it was very close. So if you replay that, I think you'll see that where I think he didn't move the ball, didn't bounce it or anything, but it ever so slightly tipped it. And
and
the other thing is,
real quick, Dick, let me just add, I think to your point earlier, Don, you're saying had he had better footwork, he could have gotten that ball over the defender's hand.
Right.
Now,
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, and I will say too, this is a comment that I made to a friend of mine who's texting me during the game. That play was to Zach Ortworth. Great play call. He was wide open.
Oh, beautiful.
Zach is probably also kicking himself because he's saying, I got to catch that ball. If I can get my hands on it, I can catch it. It's not easy. You're a 6'5" tight end trying to go down to your ankles and catch that ball with your momentum carrying you the other direction. But Don, I'm sure he's telling himself, and I'm sure Abdul Hodge, as his position coach, is saying, you got to catch that ball.
My last point is the catch by Howard. I think they said that he's about 6'3".
He's close. No, well, he's listed at 6'5".
Okay, well, he's taller, and when he and Vanderzee are both well at the same time and can put two of them out there, I think they'll be, and with Mark coming into his own, now with the passing, I think they'll be a little dangerous.
They both have length. I know Vanderzee's been complimented by his teammates for the speed. We hadn't seen speed out of Dayton, but I mentioned it earlier, Don. We've talked about it, and we might as well put another plug in because Dick is bringing it up. But that's Big Grove's big play of the day was that deep shot to Dayton Howard. And Don, the catch we talked about, but also the route run was quite effective. I know you brought up it was a fade route, but you just talk a little bit about that play and the execution and why it worked.
Well, first off, you're always thinking about angles. And think of it this way. If both defenders, let's imagine an outside receiver and then the inside receiver. The angles are more difficult to throw the same fade route to an outside receiver than it is an inside receiver simply because, well, typically the inside defender is not a corner. He's a nickelback, maybe a fifth DB. If you're really lucky, he's a bump linebacker maybe that's out there, a guy that's really presents a little bit of a mismatch in terms of speed. Oftentimes that's why you see people go to it. I've seen teams that actually consciously take their starting corner, and put him inside because they know the other team's going to try to take advantage of our third corner, if there is a third corner in the game, or a nickelback, whatever the case might be. So it's a little hard to make the throw on the boundary. Let's face it, sometimes on the boundary, you might actually throw it and catch it, but it might be out of bounds. Well, obviously, there's a lot more room to the outside. It's easier to run a fade route, and I think a lot of people don't even understand what a fade route really is. I think one of the keys to running a good fade route, you need to be vertical as you can be with your release. You don't want to run around the defender. You want to slice him to the outside, and you want to establish yourself vertically as best you can. And then if you do that, you're established on a vertical angle, and now the quarterback can throw the ball to the outside, and that's how you separate from the corner. So, it's hard. It's easier to throw and catch a fade route if you're doing it with an inside receiver because you got so much more room to the outside.
The only other I'm sorry.
I just hope that makes sense. Typically, it's just a matchup. It's not your best corner covers that are inside. It's maybe your third corner. And, of course, you can put a fast guy in there or a tall guy in there and create a mismatch.
The only other point, if you compare last year's corners with this year's corners, I think this year's corners are more on the man than they were last year. It seemed like last year, awful lot of times they were several feet or several yards off the person catching the ball, and there were exceptions today, but I think they, by and large, they're a lot tighter to those deep receivers.
And especially
enjoy the show
TJ
and
Hall.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate the call. Stay safe. Thank you. Yeah, I thought TJ Hall is a good example of that. And even the plays that were made against TJ Hall, Don, pretty good coverage. I made the note, and I'm going to delete this because we're going to talk about it, so I don't have to ask you later. This is going to sound very amateur of me, but I'm sure there's other people that are wondering the same thing, so I'll ask it. Why does it seem like Deshaun Lee, he doesn't turn around to try to face the ball when he's defending a pass? Like, it seems more often than not, and obviously that creates potential for pass interference, but and obviously less of a chance at creating interceptions, turnovers. It seems like he gets locked on the receiver even when he is sticking with the guy and he doesn't turn around for the ball. Is that something that's being taught? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll put it this way. A corner will be more likely to draw a flag if he's not as confident as he can be that he can actually trail them, get in that track position underneath him and be right there with him. And then when his eyes go to the ball, that's when your eyes should come to the ball shortly thereafter. And, of course, then you do have a chance to contest the catch. And even if there's contact, oftentimes the referee simply decides that's incidental contact. The defender was actually playing the ball, and he bumped the guy, but he's trying to make a catch on the ball himself. So it's not a foul. You're less likely to be flagged. I think maybe Deshaun's in a little more of a catch-up mode than TJ. I'm talking about, being behind the receiver, 2 feet versus 1 foot, or 3 feet versus 2 feet. Talking about just a little bit of a differential. He's in a little more of a catch-up mode, and for that reason, he doesn't quite have as much time to get his eyes around because he's trying to close that cushion.
Yeah, it's a good answer to the question. I feel like Iowa's DBs have, not maybe so much TJ, but DBs in general, even Zach Lutmer, when they've been in coverage, maybe they're playing catch up a little bit more, and so guys aren't getting their heads turned around, which again might partially explain why they're obviously being in the right position to make plays on the ball, to create turnovers, but also then because you're not in position, you're not getting your head around to be able to make a final play on the ball.
Yeah, and even if it falls incomplete, the odds are pretty good you're going to be flagged if there's contact.
So one more.
You're not even looking for the ball.
One more play or plug to our Big Grove's big play of the day. Mark Gronowski's 42-yard pitching catch to Dayton Howard. Super explosive play, a little over midway through the fourth quarter. DC Hawkeye, thank you so much for the super chat. DC Hawkeye, how about the wave back to Iowa City? Classy by Rutgers. Yeah, I guess I don't understand what the deal is with why do we not like the wave? I'm going to bring in Doug here. Doug, are you one of these guys that don't like
I'm 50-50 on it.
Why does it matter? Why do we care?
I just want it to be legit. Like, hey, you really do care about the kids.
It's not legit. What is it then?
I think it is. You said
know what it is if it isn't, but what would it be? Is it just a show? Are we just doing it to make? I don't know. What do you?
Well,
like?
I want it to be special because it is special, and that's all I was saying. If other teams want to honor and do it after the first quarter with us on the road, no, I don't have any problems with anyone supporting sick kids. I hope nobody has a problem with that. But again, I just want it to be a legit thing, and again, it's our thing, and I want it to be special. And
nothing wrong with that.
And again, I'm not. If every university in America wants to waive the sick kids, I hope it doesn't diminish what we do. Because
they're doing it because it's in honor of. The way I took what happened tonight was it made sense to me because I'm not saying Greg Schiano was the one who said you guys need to organize these drones, but I think that's a reflection of the respect the programs have for one another, right, Don?
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, this would never happen at Penn State under James Franklin. It just wouldn't happen. I don't think maybe PJ would do it, maybe because of Minnesota, but that's never going to happen at Penn State. I'm sorry. I'd be shocked, and I'll eat crow if I have to. But I think that says more about the program and who's taking the lead in that program.
Yeah. Well, again, it shouldn't be a negative thing,
Don, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I just was thinking, I wonder how the visiting team in Kinnick, are they as sincere with their waving to the kids as our bench is? I'd like to think they are.
Yeah.
But I wonder, maybe not.
There have been opposing teams that haven't waved, and that's gotten scrutiny.
Let's not judge who's waving and who's not. Everyone's a good person. Right now, we all support cancer research. We support, all that. We want all the kids to be healthy. If Michigan wants to wave tomorrow, or Indiana, or whoever wants to wave after the first quarter. I was starting to get into something about the drops on the line. I apologize to Eric. I wasn't trying to say there was a lot of drops, but they were very important drops. And you guys already talked about them. Mark went 12 for 18. That's what he said. No, there wasn't a lot of drops, but they were important drops. And that was my point. The
drops would have been, we'd look back on those drops, especially the drops. Most of those drops were earlier in the game. But we would look back at those drops and, with a wider lens of criticism and deservedly so, if it hadn't been for the Dayton Howard catch, and if it hadn't been for the Max Llewellyn pressure that created the opportunity for Jackson Rexroth. I mean, you know, it makes up for a comedy of errors when you can make a couple of big plays late. And it's not often that we say that. I mean, like Iowa, Don, is under Kirk Ferentz, especially in the last 10 years with some bad offenses, they've been known for making one or two big defensive plays or special teams plays that win them games. And it's like tonight you're looking at Caden Weegan, 104-yard kick return for a touchdown. You're looking at the Jackson Rexroth interception. You're like, they won it just the way they always win it. But then you look at the scoreboard and like, no, 38-28, that's not how they win games. And the defense struggle. They don't typically the defense, even when they make big plays, they're playing well throughout. And then they just come up with another big play with a turnover or special teams.
Yeah, Corey, you might not be aware, but I was aware of this. Think about this. Prior to today, Rutgers had been over 30 points, 7 consecutive games. We held them to 28, and that was good enough.
Uh-oh.
But that's a decent offense. It really is.
You okay, Doug?
I think so. I'm back, ain't I? You hear me?
Yeah, you look like you were scared, but go ahead.
I have a story actually first, and then I have one comment about Indiana. Don, do you remember Jim Zabel?
Sure.
Yeah. Corey know who Jim Zabel is?
Of course I know who Jim Zabel is.
Maybe I won't be able to share my story.
Yep, I know who Jim Zabel is, Doug. Go ahead.
My internet seems to be not working, so
We got you, Doug.
Okay. Hopefully it'll stay for a minute. Anyway, I have a story about not all the games used to be televised, and we would it's a Forest Eversesky story too. So back in the day, we went to a game in 1990. We were going to a wedding in 1995. It was Indiana. You guys were playing the 5th game of the year. You were going to go 5-0 against Indiana. Zabel's on the air. We have to listen to Zabel because we can't watch the game. And before 2001, not every game was televised. I don't know if you knew that, Corey, but you'd actually have to listen to the radio. And this is 1995. We listen to Zabel. He goes, ball's at the 20. Iowa's starting 1st and 10 at the 20. Sherman under center, pitches to Shaw. Shaw breaks his tackle, breaks another tackle, spins to the middle. Then he goes, ball's at 25, 2nd and 5. He gets all hype. And, if you know Zabel, this was how it was. So you thought this 5-yard play was the greatest play ever. Back in 81, Forrest Eversesky was the color commentator before Polak was the color commentator before Polak in 81 for your guys' Rose Bowl team. And Forrest Eversesky asked how the season was. And he goes, well, those were the 22 most interesting games I've ever seen. They go, 22 games? He goes, the 11 Zabel broadcasted and 11 I witnessed with my own eyes. So anyone who remembers Zabel knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I recall hearing that Forrest Evashevsky was doing radio for Iowa, but I'd forgotten that. So that's good to hear.
He was Eddie before he was their 81 color commentator.
Yeah.
So for 1040 WHO.
Don, did you get to know Forrest Evashevsky a little bit?
Not really. I met him a few times, of course, but I never really got to know him.
Okay.
He did national games too in the 70s, and he was only 42, which is the age I currently am when he quit coaching in Iowa and took their AD job. The greatest, what if his last year they were 3rd in the nation. They were 3rd in the nation, only lost 1 game. You know what bowl they went to? No bowl. Minnesota beat them and had the exact same record, and they didn't go to a bowl and finish 3rd in the nation in 1960. And he quit and gave the job to one of his assistants, and they had 19 years of losing from there on. And he, as great a coach as we say Forrest Eversesky is, he was probably Iowa's worst AD.
Yeah.
So, but
made some bad choices at football coaches, at least.
But you were with Bump Elliott, right?
Absolutely.
Corey, do you know what Bump Elliott's job was before he was AD at Iowa?
Yes, you talking to me like I'm like some little kindergartner that doesn't know anything about Big Ten.
I love history. I always feel like I need to
know about Bump Elliott and his time as a Big Ten. Yes, I know.
He's a Big Ten coach. But
Thank
anyway,
you.
going to what next week, I don't feel good or bad about the 3-1 start. I don't feel good or bad about anything with this team right now. I think next week is the game to prove where they're at. If they start 4-1, that's a good start. I mean, I mean, losing to Iowa State's bad, but you still get to go on Mark Rogers' show and talk about playoffs. I'm teasing you, buddy. I'm teasing you. But like you said, until we lose that second or third game, we get to talk about playoffs. And my internet's working, so that's good. I don't like freezing on you guys, but
hey, I'm gonna keep talking about the playoffs until they're no longer in the playoff race.
I was scared that might be tonight after the first quarter. Again, Don, what, and I'm going to end and let someone else talk. What adjustments did, and Corey, I'm sorry about talking. I just always like teaching you history about Iowa football. I send you stuff all the time. I'm like, I love Iowa. I love history, and I love the history of Iowa. And if I want to do a plug, Wrong Sports is a channel that I get a lot of my information from off of YouTube. But anyway, what adjustments did Phil make that you noticed in that second half? That, I mean, the defense, everyone noticed, was so much improved. What adjustments did you notice Phil make and for that second half? And
what made a difference to heat up the quarterback. And one way to do it, of course, is bring a fifth or sixth rusher, 5 or 6. Typically, we bring 5. And of course, another little change up, you might have seen inside linebackers rush and defensive ends drop one time. Still a 4-man rush, but not the usual 4. That's another wrinkle that you saw tonight. And the other possibility is simply to use twist stunts up in the front. The defensive end is going to dip inside, and sometimes we just beat them off the edge. You saw that with Llewellyn's play. But other times, blitz under got the job done, and that was one of Herget's sacks. So different techniques like that. Just play line games up front. Don't rush through all the logical lanes. Change that up, because then the offensive line has to be able to pass one rusher off to an adjacent lineman, and sometimes that's a problem for them, especially if you haven't shown it to them very much. So it usually gets good results. And I mean this comment, I said, one way or the other, we have to hit up the quarterback. He's too comfortable. If he's comfortable back there, he'll hit a lot of passes. Mission accomplished, though. We got that done in the second half.
Absolutely. Yeah, second half adjustments. Hawkeye 5 there in the super or the comment here in the live chat. Second half adjustments were key, and again, they were able to keep it within reaching distance. So CJW, thank you for the super chat. He says definitely felt like Lester had more freedom in play calling this game. Well, that's going to be the narrative, right? Whenever Iowa has a conservative game plan that Kirk's got his hands all over it. When they don't, when they are more aggressive, you credit Lester. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying that's going to be the convenient narrative. It did feel to me like this was a true Lester game, Don. And so maybe that's just like that's Kirk Ferentz shutting everybody up, that he's not micromanaging all the play calling. And neither you nor me have ever claimed that. I did make the comment that the Iowa State game was oddly conservative. I understand the opponent played a factor there, but it didn't feel that way tonight. This was a Rutgers defense that could be had. And that was
I'll remind you, we had some pretty aggressive play calling in the first half, too. We did.
Today. You're talking about today?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No.
So it's not like we wanted to go with our usual conservative play calling.
No,
in
not
the
at all.
first half, we were pretty wide open.
Richard Peterson, thank you for the super chat, Richard. Mark finally turned the corner tonight. He needed the confidence, and now it is off the charts. Whole team is behind him now. Corners struggled, however, got better and gained confidence as well. Did I read this already? Nevertheless, Richard, thank you for the super chat. It's much appreciated, the donation. And folks, if you're new, you can call in, ask your question via our phone line, 515-635-1601. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen, or you can call in via StreamYard. I'll throw the link up in the live chat, but it's also in the description of our video. All right, let's go back to, we got a couple. We've got our person on the phone line who's been waiting, and then we've got Corey in the StreamYard queue. So let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson. Who's on the line?
How are you guys?
I'm sorry, who is this?
Big Al.
Hey, Big Al. How you doing, buddy?
How are you?
We're doing good. How are you?
Good. So CJ, you just were talking about a question from CJ.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to go a little deeper in with you guys, if I can, real quick. So,
okay.
It's kind of do it in three parts, which is, do you think when Coach Ferentz hired Tim Lester, that he sat down with him and said, you know, this is the structure of how we do things here, and you know, if you kind of want to be a part of that, you need to fit into this structure?
As far as like game planning,
offensively,
approach,
yeah, game planning, but also more broad, like approach and philosophy.
I mean, to an extent, I think is that a natural thing when a head coach hires a coordinator, Don? That's part of the interview process, right? It's not just about finding out who this coach is and what his credentials are and what he would bring to the table, but also explaining to him what he's interviewing for. Is that fair, Don?
Well, I'm not privy to the conversation that went on, but it'd be logical in my mind. Let's face it, one of the criticisms for a period of time was the play calling is too conservative. You know, we're playing not to lose rather than playing to win. So realizing all that, it'd be logical in my mind that Kurt might have said, we've had good success here in low-scoring games, but if you can give us a bigger margin for error by producing more points on offense, that'd be a good thing. But understand, if we're able to win the game by playing close to the vest, I don't want you throwing the ball all over the lot if we got the game already won. I can see that kind of conversation, but logically, I think Tim might have said, give me an idea of how much freedom I'm going to be given, because I like to be challenged by my job, and I want to believe if I come to work for you, you're going to give me every chance to show how I can help the offense with my game planning and with my play calling. I'd like to believe that Tim approached that subject with Kirk long before the deal was struck.
All right, so if you guys stay with me now, we go to like the next step, which is all right, approaching it's game week now, and coaches are in their meetings and they're doing kind of game planning. How much do you think Coach Ferentz has his hands in the game plan for that week offensively, or Coach Lester? Do you think he's really involved and hands-on and kind of molding what he wants that game plan to look like? Or do you think he's stepping back and giving Lester room to plan his?
Well, he certainly has input. Let's just remind ourselves that Kirk's been an offensive coach his entire life. So Kirk has a lot of good ideas for how to help the offense. And I'm sure he shares those with the offensive staff. So
well, then go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, I just don't know exactly how it all unfolds. I'm not in those staff meetings. I don't know, but I do suspect this. It'd be logical. I was the same way with my coordinators. The more confidence I gain in them, the more freedom I give them. So if I'm not really sure that they're ready to take the ball and run with it, so to speak, I'm going to be more involved. And as I see that they can handle that responsibility, and as they earn my complete confidence, I'm going to give them more freedom to do the stuff that they'd like to do too. And let's not forget, Kirk's job is way beyond just game planning. There's a lot of stuff that a head coach has to do that's time consuming, that doesn't relate to setting the plans. So even if he wants to be involved 100% of the time, the truth is is sometimes taken away from the game planning with one chore or another. That's just a part of being a head football coach.
So then I guess the third step in all of it would be down to the actual game. Like during the game, I was noticing sometimes, especially during the Iowa State game, that between plays, you would see him on the headset, and there would be like a lot of conversation between plays. Do you think he's saying like, I want to keep it on the ground here? Or, you know, do you think that he's being that direct talking to the offensive staff? Or do you think he's like offering suggestions? Or do you think there are times where he steps in and dictates like, hey, we're going to keep it on the ground this whole series?
Answers this. We have talked about this, right, Don? I mean, I've asked the same question here over the last couple of weeks. Go ahead, Don.
I would say this: if you simply tried to chart Kirk for an entire football game, he would be seen wearing headsets all the time. In general, I think you'll all admit, in general, there's not a whole lot of conversation coming out of Kirk during the game.
Okay.
There really isn't. But getting back to your question, if our offense is on the bench, our defense is on the field, yes, there would be conversation. Kirk's preoccupied with how the defense is holding up out on the field, but at that same time, there is discussion about what we need to do in this next possession. And it might be the case of, let's say we're protecting a 10-point lead, we're in the middle of the third quarter. Kirk might say, listen, let's get back to our running game. We need to establish the run. And if we can burn a lot of clock here and limit their possessions, that'd be a good thing to do. Let's shorten the game, in other words, by running the ball. We've been running it okay anyway. Let's just be sure we don't stop the clock too often with incomplete throws. He might give them general guidance like that. Or to the other extreme, he might say, let's go ahead and open it up a little bit. But let's say there's 10 minutes left in the game. He might say, let's open it up a little bit. We're down by 7 right now. I want to be sure we have at least 2 more possessions and not 1. Getting back to the Iowa State game, think about this. Everybody was impressed that we could go for a 16-play drive. And that's all well and good. But every now and then, as an offensive coordinator, I found myself wishing I was going to go for a 3-play 80-yard drive. Because, and Phil Parker will tell you this, if you have to snap the ball 16 times to score a touchdown, you're going to mess that up before you ever get there. Even a simple 5-yard penalty can ruin a drive. As we've discussed before, a sack is a drive killer, or a drop pass is a drive killer, or a holding call is a drive killer, or for that matter, a missed field goal is an empty possession because you didn't produce points. So, for those reasons, a lot of defensive coaches, and Phil Parker would be at the top of the list. Phil would say, if they have to snap the ball 15 times to score, they're not likely to score because we're not going to give them a chance to snap it 15 times. At some point, we're going to kill the drive, or they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, one or the other. So you get my drift, and especially now if you're protecting a 10-point lead, everybody wants a 17-play drive. But what if you're down by 10? Now you find yourself wishing, man, I wish we could score quicker and be able to have one more possession than what we're going to end up with. So that's the predicament that you get into sometimes with an offense that cannot produce chunk plays. The beauty of Tim Lester, he uses a better chance for chunk plays. We saw a lot of chunk plays tonight. Corey, as you mentioned, thank God for that Vegas route by number 7, because that maybe was the play of the game. You and I were in agreement. If you had to identify one play, we both agreed without talking to each other. We both agreed that was the play.
Absolutely. Is that where you're getting to, caller? As far as just like, are you? Why you bring up that? Are you just curious on the nature of the play-by-play breakdown between coaches and communication, or I guess what's your question?
Well, I mean, I've been watching Iowa football forever, like most of your callers, and calling and asking this question after a 38-point night is probably not the best timing. If they scored 13 and lost the game, everybody's kind of like poking around about the offense. And I guess, just watching the offense for years and kind of watching what it does. Obviously, the offense looks better this year, looks more in sync, but I'm always curious, just like, we went through the three. I think it was Greg Davis and then Brian and now Tim. And there are some commonalities in terms of like choices we make and certain curious calls where, we might have a 3rd and 6 down on our own 25 with, 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game, and we might run the ball, and you're just kind of thinking, wow, that's really conservative. If we're in a spot where maybe it would make more sense to pass. And you see those commonalities across coordinators, and you start to wonder, okay, well, just like how much influence does a head coach have?
Yeah.
I was curious to ask you, from the media standpoint, has anyone ever, like, Kirk directly in a Tuesday presser or a post-game presser, or since you've been in that room, if you asked a question like that to him, somewhat direct, would it be a cold reception?
Like what? How would you phrase that question? I'm just curious.
How much influence do you have over the offensive calls, like play to play or drive to drive? Are you kind of saying like, hey, let's keep it on the ground?
Yeah,
Let me answer that. I've been in the shoes of a play caller. I can promise you the game is happening so fast. The last thing you need is a lot of interference from the head coach. And I promise you, Kirk does not interfere to that extent. Kirk does not micromanage the offense. Some people might think he does, but he doesn't. Now, to set the record straight, if we're on the field with our offense, I promise you, he's not saying a lot to Tim unless we take a timeout. If we take a timeout, it's a critical situation. Yes, he's going to give input. He might say, I think we should go ahead and go play action. I don't know if we can gain 4 yards with a run play. Let's go play action and throw the ball. Incidentally, a good call today. Remember the time we ran the flat route with Weechin? That was a good call.
Yes, it was. It was a big 3rd down as well.
It was. And here's the beauty of Weechin. Weechin turns upfield. He makes the first guy miss, and a little short throw turns into an 18-yard gain.
Yeah. So I think in response to your question, caller, like I would have no issue asking that question, but I do trust you on that, Don, that just from a perspective of timing, there's not enough time to really be micromanaging, play to play.
I would even challenge the listener, just zero in on Kirk when our offense is on the field and tell me how little he's talking on the phones. He's listening. He absolutely knows what every play is that's about to be run, but he's not confusing the process by spending a lot of time talking directly to Tim. Go back and look at how often his mouth moves. Not very much.
Just to be clear, I'm not trying to, make it seem like a negative. It's just something that if you've never been on the sideline, it's a reasonable question. You just don't understand what's going on and back and forth and how much time there is. And, it's just when you see Iowa kind of be struggling for year over year through different coordinators and stuff offensively, even though tonight was much, much better, but just over the course of years, you just start to kind of look for the commonalities. And
yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate you not assuming, well, this is Kirk's offense. I mean, I get that perspective because it is easy to see the commonalities and what's the common denominator through all these offensive coordinators. It's encouraging for me. It was encouraging for me, and maybe it was to you as well, caller, to see Iowa. To me tonight, it looked like a Tim Lester game. This looked like what I expected. Now it's easy to say that when play calls work, right? But it did feel like, okay, this is clearly a different offense. And I don't know the last time I would have said that. If I could have said that under Tim Lester to this point. We're a season and a quarter done now, and this felt like a Tim Lester game, and I don't know that I would have said that prior to today, other than games like against UMass where, Brian probably could have scored 40 on UMass.
Right.
Bryant's offense is good to have. So, Rutgers doesn't have a great defense, but the bottom line is on the road, environment, Big Ten atmosphere. I thought he called a good game, and I thought this looked different. This didn't look like typical Iowa. Would you agree with that, caller?
Oh yeah, for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, having Mark be able to run the ball down by the goal line or on a 3rd and 3, like that gives Iowa's offensive dimension that it just hasn't had in a long time.
Yep.
And then, it's easy to forget, but look at the amount of times that we targeted or threw successfully to wide receivers. And I remember when Brian was there in his last year, there would be games where wide receivers wouldn't have a single catch.
Isn't that crazy?
Not a single catch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
there is progress there. And even though Mark has missed a couple of, a couple of bunnies there that just, man, it's tough to watch it when it's that open or it's that critical, but he's making passes that I haven't seen quarterbacks at Iowa be able to make since, Nate Stanley, probably.
Yeah, and even with Nate, he never had a real great. I don't know what Mark's current completion percentage is. Obviously, he struggled week 1 and wasn't great week 2. But even Nate, I don't believe ever had a season of 60% completion. So, we'll see. That's got to be, I think, a minimum for Mark in his final year here at Iowa. But yeah, no, he played well tonight, and it's going to be a fun. I'm not going to totally shift away from this game yet tonight, but it's going to be interesting watching Illinois and Indiana do battle tomorrow and lead up to Iowa's next game. So anything else for Coach Patterson, caller, before I let you slide?
No, just a lot of guys are out there talking about the Hawks, but there's none better than you two. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
That. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me make one other comment about all this, Corey. Is it hard to imagine if it was the run impediment for Tim last season? I'm saying, is it hard to imagine that Tim might have decided to go somewhere else? In other words, Kurt's giving him a chance to do his job, and he's doing it. Today would indicate he's doing it well.
Yeah, I agree. Scott, let's go to Scott. Actually, Lemansky's up first with his super chat. Thank you, Lemansky. Special teams deserves flowers. They again factored in 10 points worth, touchdown, and blocked field goal. Well, if we're going to go, I'm not trying to be a nitpicker, but if we're going to play that game, and I believe we have Lemansky. Lemansky, do we have you on the phone, Lemansky?
Yes, you do.
Real quick, before I let you talk, you're more than, thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse line, but I'm going to patch you through just because your comment's up here on the screen. If we're going to play the game of giving points to the special teams unit for blocking field goals, we have to take points off for the field goal missed. But regardless, absolutely, what a big play to start this game with Caden Weegan. If you had told me at the time that Iowa would score 38 and only win by 10, I'd have told you were crazy, but Don called it in advance. He said this was going to be a higher scoring game than we were used to. But absolutely. To get Caden Weegan in the end zone again on special teams, what a huge boost.
Yeah, I just don't want we focus so much on the other two sides of the ball. I just don't want people to forget the history of the special teams at Iowa was just spectacular.
Sure is. Yeah, absolutely. And there's
and I didn't enjoy the comments about the field goal kicker either. I mean, I think there's 3 people to that process, and I think that, well, even Iowa State's kicker, he's lauded the last year and this year for beating Iowa, and he's had some misses too. So I didn't enjoy that comment about the kicker at all.
Yeah, he did, and it's hard for a Hawkeye fan to say much negative about Kyler. What is his name? Kyle Conradi. Yeah. But yeah, he did not look good last week against Arkansas State, but he's killed Iowa 2 years in a row. So
it's getting late, and I thank you guys for sticking with it. It's amazing. I've got one question. Either one of you can comment, and I don't know the answer to this at all. But for years, KF on the sideline sometimes will pull out his little notepad, and he'll put his pad on his knee, and he'll write something down. Do either one of you know what he's writing? Because it must be dang important.
He's been asked that before, Don. Isn't he writing down like miscues or something?
Basically, he's writing down stuff that he might need to refer to in the locker room. I think probably he writes more in the first half, in the second half, if only because writing in the second half, of course, is not going to help you when you get to the locker room. But I think writing down little notes about what to bring up to the team, mental mistakes, physical mistakes, whatever the case might be, it's something that relates to the play that just unfolded on the field.
I guess with that, it's getting late, gentlemen, but thanks for all your good work. And one last thing, and then I'll hang up and wait for a response. Don, you especially are can talk on this. I don't believe you can hold assistant coaches by not letting them have a sufficient say on the defensive or offensive side of the ball. I'm sure as I don't know what the right word for Hayden is, but he had opinions, but he held a lot of his assistant coaches for years. KF has held all of his assistants for years. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, we've kind of tagged KF a little too heavy on, he's behind every assistant coach. He's got his hands on everything. And I just like Don, you to comment on that. And I'll hang up.
Thanks, Lomansky.
Well, Kurt would be the first to tell you he's an expert on offensive line play. He'd be the first to tell you I'm no expert on quarterback play. That's why I've hired Tim Lester. Someone asked me one time, why don't you see more specialty teams coaches as head coaches? And I think the primary reason, if you haven't been let me give you a prime example. Let's talk about UCLA for a minute, about their coaching change.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we need to.
What a mess.
Because it relates to what I'm going to say. I feel sorry for the guy. I think he's a good guy. He was a great running back. He was the favorite son of LSU. I'm sorry, of UCLA, of course. But the truth is, he was put into that position of head coach, and he'd never been a coordinator on offense or defense. And here's one reason I think it would be wise for any AD to pick a coach that has an experience as a coordinator before giving him the opportunity to be a head coach. At the very least, because of his interaction with the media, he'll be exposed and comfortable with press conferences. He's had some work with that, more certainly than a position coach would have had. And then beyond that, ideally, he's an expert on either one or the other, either offense or defense. And he's such an expert, he's a huge resource to that side of the ball. The example of Hayden Fry. He was an offensive mind. I'm here to tell you, I was there with him for 21 years. He's a huge resource to us. Now, he wouldn't pretend to have all the right ideas, but he would come to me and he would say, what about this? What about that? And I might have to say, Coach, I got to go back and look at the cut-ups. I'm talking about the plays that have that particular formation, and I'll get back to you. Sometimes I come back and I say, Coach, it's not worth it. It's too much of a roll of the dice. We can't predict what they're going to be doing. He would be disappointed, but he would understand. Often was the case. I would come back to Coach Ryan and say, Coach, you're right. That's a good idea. It's going to be in the plan. We'll have it in the script for tomorrow's practice. And we'll be ready to practice it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we're ready to pull it out and use it on Saturday. So that's the kind of, and the reason that Hayden was comfortable, his expertise is offense. He helped the offense a lot. He didn't pretend to help Bill Brazier as much as he helped Bill Snyder or Don Patterson. Why? Because Bill Brazier was an experienced defensive coach. One reason Kirk hired Norm Parker and Phil Parker to replace Norm Parker. He didn't have to worry so much about the defense as the offense. Now, Kirk can still help the defense by simply pointing this out. Same thing I used to do as an old quarterback receiver coach. I would tell our defensive coordinator at Western Illinois, I'm no expert on defense, but never forget that I do know what bothers the offense. So let me tell you what bothers us. Now, I don't know if we can do that to the opponent. I'm just throwing it out. Is that a possibility for how to defend them? And the DC might say, that's a great idea, coach. We'll implement it. Or maybe he'll say, it's a good idea, coach, but I don't think it fits our personnel. And then after I've challenged him as to giving me a reason why it's not a good idea, if he gave me a good reason, that was the end of that conversation. I think Kirk does the same thing for our defense. He might say, is this a possibility for how to defend these guys? And Kirk will be the first to tell you, I'm not the expert on defense. Phil Berger is. So he gives them input, but the bottom line, I'd be surprised if Kirk was any different than I was as the head coach. He's a greater resource for the offense for the obvious reason. He's been an offensive coach most of his adult life.
Good explanation. And Lisa, thank you so much for being here. She says that she just got done performing at a concert. So congratulations, Lisa. Would love to hear where you performed tonight. So thank you for being here. It sounds like she's caught up on the Iowa game. So a bunch of happy people out there. And it's as we trudge through the midnight hour here early on Saturday, September 20th. Super chat from Lomansky. I think we covered this. But again, thank you for the super chat, Lomansky. Scott, thank you so much, Scott. Scott Henning says, just my opinion, regardless, it was good to see the offense score a lot of points when needed and win. Go Hawks. Oh, absolutely. Don, it just felt weird. I mean, I said it at the outset of the show. It just felt weird, this game going back and forth. And I made the comment several times. People I was watching the game with, I said, this is not the track meet. Iowa does not want to be in a track meet with this team. But they were able to make adjustments at halftime. And I know this comment is sort of tongue-in-cheek, but let me find the question. Well, Aaron says, Coach Don, how does the defense go from bad to good in one half?
They're called halftime adjustments.
Yeah, so there was a comment in here about halftime adjustments that I'm trying to find. Kyle Hawks says, Pasty needs work, but got better the second half. By the way, thank you for being a premium member, as well as Sam Corbin. Thank you for being a premium member. He says, I'm happy the offense showed up. It would have been ugly if we had last year's type of performance. So, yeah, Mitch, here's the question I was looking for. Mitch says, why do they wait until halftime to make adjustments? Defense got smoked the first half. Why not make adjustments sooner? So, Don, can you talk about some of those adjustments? I think you referred to them earlier in the show, but what can be corrected at halftime that is hard to correct during the course of a game?
Well, let's face it, Phil's upstairs, so there's no way that anybody can see any player can see any of Phil's ideas on a board, right? That happens in the locker room at halftime. There might be a little bit of chalk talk at halftime. But the bottom line, we did try to make some adjustments in the first half. Let me give you an example. We started off primarily playing zone. They picked us apart with a lot of passes in the soft spots in the zone. You saw then, and we were not getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Phil then resorted, even in the first half, go back and look. We resorted to trying to pressure him with some blitz packages in the first half. The only problem, we're more vulnerable to man coverage at that point, and they victimized us with some man coverage. We were playing man free. There was a free safety back there, but the bottom line, and I'm an old quarterback coach, so I'll just tell you what happens. This will make sense to you. There's a coverage called man free tight. You press up with the corners on the wideouts, and you think, well, that's a good safe thing to do because we still have a free safety. He's the last line of defense. What do you think a quarterback does before the snap? He looks for the best matchup. And in general, tonight you'd have to say it was a receiver from them versus Deshaun, because in general, I think Deshaun saw a few more balls versus press coverage than TJ did.
Yeah.
And then what else a good quarterback will do, if Deshaun's over here on the left where he is, I'm going to drop back, and guess where my eyes are going to be early in the play? They're going to be to the right. Why are they to the right, Corey? Because I'm working that free safety away from where I'm going to throw. That's what good quarterbacks do. Eye control to eliminate that free safety. He's really not positioned to help, because if he's playing my eyes, I'm looking him away from where I'm going to throw. That's what good quarterbacks do. And in that regard, the free safety's no help to the corner. That's why you get victimized by a good quarterback. He'll control the free safety with his eyes, throw the ball away from the free safety.
I can try to find these first quarter stats, but Don, did it or did it not feel like Rutgers was basically just taking shots almost every play in that first quarter?
I've got the stats after 2 drives.
Okay.
9 for 11 for 112 yards.
I mean, that's pretty successful, and it didn't feel like they had any intentions of slowing it down. Like they were just content, and it was brought up earlier too, like maybe we saw why they were so pass happy because they don't have a lot of confidence in that run game. But I also give Iowa credit for slowing them down once they put it on the ground. But it just felt early like Rutgers was saying, look, we don't need to run. We're going to victimize you on the back end and hit you.
If I'm not mistaken, that first drive had 1 running play.
Yeah. Well, case in point.
From the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Or whatever. 5 yard line, 4 yard line. I can't remember.
Yeah. Case in point. Again, thank you, Scott, for that super chat.
Let me make one other observation. I think we thought there was a chance we weren't even going to see Ian Strong tonight. He was
questionable.
He was questionable. So in our defense, maybe we didn't foresee that he was even going to be part of the early stage of the game, or maybe not play as effectively as normal. But I think we were all impressed with Ian Strong. I do remember there was one stretch they threw him a ball 3 consecutive snaps, and I believe they converted all 3 times. He's a good player.
Yeah, they got several good players. And did Sheffield play today, Don?
He did. He had the biggest route that beat Lumber.
Okay, man.
Early in the game, 40 yards.
That's one thing that you talked about, and I will say I was right. I was wrong about some things tonight. I was right about this. They have several receivers that are really good. They had 3 guys heading into tonight that had already totaled 200+ yards through the air. And I mean, a lot of what the stats played out exactly. These are the stats I brought up during my preview earlier, released earlier in the week, Don. I brought up how Rutgers heading into this game was 36th in the country in total offense, 13th in scoring offense. What didn't play out is Iowa was 3rd in total defense, 14th in scoring defense. That did not play out. And they still held them to 28, but that's still atypical for an Iowa defense. Callie McManus had totaled over 250 yards through the air in every game so far heading into this game. Tonight, he finishes with 330 yards. 73% completion heading into this game. 820 yards through 3 games. 7 touchdowns, no picks. Callie McManus had the one really big pick tonight that really hurt them and helped Iowa. And it took 3 sacks. So Iowa did get home more. What was the key to getting home more, Don? Was it the increase in pressure? Dick brought that up earlier when he called in. It seemed like, in general, Phil Parker blitzed more tonight, sent pressure from different directions. And I think you would probably say that was wise on his part, because you kept saying to me when we were talking at halftime, they got to get in the pocket. They got to make problems for Callie McManus back there.
One way or the other, we got to make him uncomfortable. And we did. Now we had to risk a little bit of man coverage. We were a little bit exposed, but we were banking on getting home some too. And we did. And I promise there were a few times we got the ball out, but what the average fan tracks the ball, what they don't see is the quarterback getting one under his chin shortly after he threw it. We had a few of those too. I'm not talking about illegal hits. I'm just talking about almost getting home. And that takes a little bit of a toll on any quarterback too. Getting knocked to the ground, even though the ball was able to be thrown.
Lomansky, thank you for the super chat. In honor of Don, Corey, take the $2 for a disposable razor. So real quick, I want to establish this real quick. Kyle was not available. So Kyle, I think, is sawing logs right now because he is not – I've not heard from Kyle. I heard from him earlier, but I think he's out. So I'm not going to be shaving on the air, but I promise you, it's my vow to everybody, when you see me next, the facial hair will be gone. I promise you that. That's my vow. I'm a man of my word. I will fulfill that. So it won't be because I can't just leave Don here by himself. So I have to stay on here. But I promise you, we'll get the facial hair off. I appreciate everybody supporting that, and Kevin and DC Hawkeye for the extraordinarily large super chats. Very much appreciated to both of you and everybody else that's supported. Go ahead, Don.
You have to wait a full week to see the clean shaven Corey.
Not if you're on the channel tomorrow. Well, let's see. Well, we have programming.
Well, you're gonna be with Mark probably.
Yeah, we've got to be on the show with Mark on Tuesday, and of course, be coming out with a preview for Indiana fairly early in the week. And Iowa men's basketball got a 4-star commit here this past week, so still got to talk about that. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to see the clean-shaven face, Don.
And I mentioned to Kirk the other day, as you know, Corey, we've only played 2 conference games right now, right?
Right.
I'm sorry.
One conference game. They've played 2 Power 4.
Well, this was the 3rd game tonight. There were 2 last week. That's what I should have said.
Oh, you're talking about for the Big Ten in general. Okay.
Big Ten, yeah.
Yeah.
So tonight was the 3rd Big Ten conference game. Of course, we got 5 tomorrow. So then we'll be up to 8 games. My point is we don't have a good sample yet of conference games. So I did mention to Kirk, just so you know, Kirk, I'm going to give you what I refer to as a bowl evaluation of Indiana. And all I mean by that, imagine for a bowl game, of course, you just zero in on your bowl opponent. You don't really care about all these other games that are part of a Big Ten season. So with Indiana, what I've already done, I've got almost all the work done. I've got 9 games from last fall, the 9 conference games involving Indiana. Not to mention the playoff loss to Notre Dame makes 10. And now Illinois versus Indiana tomorrow will make 11. So I'll have analytics on 11 games involving Indiana. And that'll be a good idea of what matters most in beating Indiana. I guarantee we'll find something in there that's worth knowing from those analytics in those 11 games.
Our guy Mark Rogers says Callie McManus might be the best QB in the history of Rutgers football, and I'm not even joking. Name a better quarterback in the history of Rutgers football, Don.
Well, I'm not an expert on Rutgers football, but I can't think of one. And I know this, Mark has a better idea of Rutgers quarterbacks through the years than I do.
Good for Mark. I'm glad he has a good foothold on the history of Rutgers quarterbacks. So
he knows even more about Buckeye quarterbacks.
How about this comment from Japcar84? He says, 2 bad teams played tonight. How would you respond to that comment, Don? Too early to say that. You can say that, but it's just too early to say that.
I'm trying to figure out what Japcar84 does for a living. The one thing I'm sure of, he's not a college football coach.
Well, call him out then, Don. What do you disagree with this comment? You don't believe these are 2 bad teams that played tonight?
No.
Do you believe that these are 2 teams that will finish middle of the pack in the Big Ten? I mean,
at the very least, in the middle of the pack, yeah.
Okay, you think Rutgers can finish in the middle of the pack?
Yeah, I think the Rutgers are going to win some games. Absolutely.
All right, that's a big statement because they haven't won game. I mean, they haven't won a lot of games in the Big Ten. They've been better under Schiano, but it's still been a struggle. And last year was the first year out of that wicked East Division.
Well, as Mark pointed out, they've got a veteran quarterback, and the last time I checked, they've got some dangerous receivers. Right?
Yeah, very true. They sure do. We saw that tonight. Derek says Corey's got to be happy tonight. A Hawkeye win and no Tim Brando on the broadcast. Thank you for that. Yes, Connor Onion. Thank you, Connor Onion. I'm not going to rip anybody. I'm not going to name the person by name, but there was a particular individual that made a couple of really bad gaffes in the broadcast tonight that to me are almost, we criticize players that are playing. They're in the spotlight. When you're working the media, you're in the spotlight, and I've taken my fair share of criticism. But when you're interviewing Kirk Ferentz, you ought to know how to say his last name, A. And then when you have a report, like first 5 minutes of your broadcast, and you report Kamari Moulton's name as Kamari Mootown or something like that, Moultown or something. I'm like, That's homework, Don. You've worked TV. I'm sorry. Again, you've worked TV plenty for the Missouri Valley and ESPN Plus. Like,
believe me, there's a lot of preparation to do a game as an analyst.
yeah.
You know, actually, for a Missouri Valley game, I would do the analytics on those two teams too. So part of the introduction would involve analytics for every last game I ever did.
Yeah. Kamari Mouton, I think is how it was pronounced. I just don't get that. But anyways, Bob brings up how the record is now Phil Parker 8, Kirk Soraka 0. That was
that,
Don, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where. I guess when Phil was at we're at, he was in the back as a coordinator, I think, right?
He was several places, more than just one or two places. I'd have to pull up his resume, but yeah, he was several places. And James, thank you for being a premium member. Same with Jake. Appreciate that. And then Midnight Waves Radio, it appeared as if some Rutgers players were taking dives. I thought about that during the game. It did appear like there were some really untimely injuries, Don, when Iowa had some offensive momentum. But I think too highly of Greg Schiano to believe that was happening. But did you have the same feeling like there were some really weird?
Crossed my mind.
Okay. I just thought there were some oddly timed delays, especially as Iowa was driving offensively. And Iowa didn't have guys down. Like, it was Rutgers all day. Same with UMass last week. Maybe that's just because Iowa was in better shape conditioning-wise, but it just seemed like Rutgers was down all day, UMass was down all day. Iowa guys weren't really getting hurt on the playing field.
Yeah. A week ago, of course, we had the heat to deal with, but we had ideal conditions today. So I hate to believe that any player took a dive just to try to disrupt their drive.
Mark says that Soraka was at Minnesota and Penn State. So there's your record now. His
I got you. So the other games were Iowa versus Minnesota or Penn State.
Right. Okay. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse line. And before we do that, a big thank you to our sponsors, and one being none other than our guy Brad Van Meter down at State Farm in Des Moines. Be sure you call Brad first thing Monday. He'll get you all set up on an auto policy, or just get a quote, right? Get you an idea if he can save you some money, or perhaps it's boaters insurance, motorcycle insurance, homeowners insurance, or the like. Give him a call, 515-256-6480, or visit them online, bradvanmeter.com. You don't got to live in Des Moines or in Polk County or in central Iowa. Give him a call if you're a Hawkeye fan. See how he can help you save money on insurance. 515-256-6480 or online at bradvanmeter.com. And, of course, Iowa Smokehouse. It can be bought so many different places, but why not just get it sent right to your doorstep with the code Hawkeyes? Use that code Hawkeyes at iowasmokehouse.com. Get 15% off your favorite snacks, including their jerky, their meat sticks, their barbecue sauces, their ketchups. It's all delicious. Their salsas are awesome as well. And again, you'll get 15% off with that code Hawkeyes. And go to iowasmokehouse.com, spend $50. You'll get free shipping right to your doorstep. Be prepared for the long football, basketball, hockey, sports seasons ahead with Iowa Smokehouse. All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse line. We've got Corey, who's been waiting for a while. Corey, welcome. Thanks for staying up late with us.
Love it, gentlemen. Love it. Great to hear from Lemansky. I still have an active missing persons report that I filed on Erica. Erica?
She's in the chat. She's in the chat. We saw her earlier. She made
shit.
a comment early. She said, "Go Hawks" in the chat at one point. I did see Erica there.
Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to point out that Seth Wallace made the comment, made reference to the No Boys with an N. Well, they're officially back to being the Doughboys because they got their pick. And, I think we saw them grow up a little bit tonight.
I agree.
They really had some adversity and they could have really caved. And they didn't. They tightened it up. And Really, Don, wouldn't you say all of them? Even Deshaun Lee tightened it up. Now he still got burned, but they were perfect throws to elite wide receivers.
He was competing. They were
Yeah.
those guys are tough matchups for any corners. They're pretty good.
So, I guess last year, this was my concern, was these doughboys were kind of no boys last year and were vulnerable. And now we've put this on tape that, hey, these guys can tighten up and they can be the force that they've been known to be. Here's my concern, and this is my question for you, Don. We also put on tape that if you isolate our linebacker like Carson Shire, you can get separation on him, and he's got his back turned to the ball all night long, and you're running away from him. And I guess my question to you is, as an offensive coordinator, do you see that as a vulnerability? From what was put on tape tonight, looked like there was a lot of plays where and they were able to get a wide receiver paired up against him, but he was oftentimes trying to chase down somebody quite a bit quicker than him with his back to the ball, and they just kind of had their way with him for a period of for a period of time. Is that a vulnerability that we put on tape?
Well, it seems to me a lot of the mismatches when both were kind of in the vicinity of linebackers, my recall is it happened more in versus zone coverage than man, to be honest with you. You're in a tough spot there when you typically see sharp breaking routes, stick routes or flat routes, you might want to call them. You're just down and out and catch them all on the seam, stuff like that. I don't know that we spend a whole lot of time, unless it's two-man, 500-man. Typically, that's long yardage situations. We'd be 500-man with linebackers manned up on the appropriate people. One would be you take the back if he came out your side of the formation, and there's a tight end and a back, of course. You have to banjo those guys some of the time. And I guess you got to keep them off balance with pressure every now and then too. One way to eliminate the mismatch is to bring the linebacker, because let's face it, it's hard to get backs out if they have to pass protect.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if they don't know what your plan might be.
I mean, it looked like, we were bringing the linebackers later in the game, second half, and it looked like you didn't see Carson Shire hung out on an island with a receiver in the second half like you did so much in the first, because that was painful to watch. And it's not about me picking on him. It's about, are our linebackers going to be a target?
Yeah, we were lucky it was early in the game. Shire, first they threw a flat route against him out in the flat, and he reacted and tackled the guy. You remember what came next? A wheel route, an out and go, if you will. And the guy did have him beaten, and the ball was overthrown, thankfully. So that's kind of what you're talking about, Corey. That's one time he was victimized. It could have been a big play. They still have to throw and catch it. Thankfully, it was overthrown.
Right. So, lastly, I guess, Don, and thank you both for the great show. Just fun to celebrate a nice win with being able to watch this show. Such a great show. But Don, what would you say is the explanation for just the massive separation that we're seeing from our receivers, the amount of open space they've gotten, in this past game. Excuse me. Is it a change in the route trees and the route formations, or do you feel like this opponent was a lesser opponent than these previous opponents? What explains?
One
I
of
can't.
the plays we were more open than any other time. A couple come to mind. One of them though was 3rd and 2. I'm sorry, 2nd and 2. 2nd and 2. Play action X over plus 25. We used a waste down, Corey, in the first
I
half.
was just gonna bring.
Thank you. I tweeted that out in all caps ×4. Waist down. Because they actually did it and it worked, Don. It was a successful waist down try.
We also brought a tight end out of the backfield. I don't know if I can find it in my notes. And he ended up running. They dropped him in coverage. Who got the ball? Help me out, Corey. I think it's the second half.
Was it Ortworth or no? Was it 81?
DJ, because well, maybe it was Ortworth.
I thought it was a tight end.
Yeah, well, DJ or Ortworth, those are the only two guys that had catches as tight ends today. Nothing for large.
Yeah, I can't find it in my notes now. Hang on 1 minute and I'll find it. Shoot.
But boy,
Keep talking. I'll keep looking.
So nice to see that extra pop that you get with Kamari Moulton. He's just got that extra.
I thought Jazz was playing pretty well before he went down.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Jazz continue to. I mean, I like to see Kamari back. Don't get me wrong, but and I do think, I know it's one play. As this season goes on, if you're going to burn Nathan McNeil's red shirt, figure out ways to get him in open space. Because he's got some zig in his zag.
Because tonight he might have only been out there for one snap, but it was an awfully good snap.
Well, he was out there for a number of snaps, Don. He just didn't get the ball more than once. But yeah, no, absolutely.
I found my play. It was Ortworth, 24 yards. You remember the play, maybe? He was a motion guy in the backfield, and we had two receivers that took their guys across the field in man coverage, and then he linked out a little bit late and was all alone for 24 yards. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Awesome play. And that's the other concern that I was having leading up to this game. It seems like we've kind of, gone away from the tight ends. Well, this game, we brought them back in, and it was good to see because it just, we were attacking from a lot of different ways and means. It just seemed like a lot more creativity to the offense. Just a lot.
Another thing we did, we gave Mark a moving platform. He was not always in the back of the pocket. We put him on the edge more often, and that was helpful.
Yeah, great point. And then it also is a threat to the defense when he's rolling out there. Is he going to run it? Is he? They've got to think about that.
You're right.
And he's
But
such.
that weighs on their mind because he pulled the ball down several times tonight, and you might think he's only going to gain 2 or 3, and he ends up gaining 8 or 9. Because he's just not going to go down that easy.
It's quite a change from watching Deacon Hill. And
real quick, you know who it's? Well, no, I shouldn't go there, but I was watching 2021 highlights the other day, and how easily and this is nothing against him personally, just football, how easy it was for guys to bring Spencer Petras to the ground. It was so easy to get him to go down, and it's the exact opposite now. And it was the exact opposite with Nate Stanley. That's why it was so hard watching Spencer Petras, because he came right after Nate Stanley.
No, Petras was 6'5", but what was his weight? He was a little slimmer, wasn't he? He wasn't 237 like.
No, he definitely wasn't built like Gronowski. I think he kind of had a bit of a dad bod, in a sense.
Yeah,
that would be the term I would use, Corey. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he was some cut athlete. Like, I'm not saying he's not an athlete. He's a quarterback. He's an athlete. He's a D1 athlete. But if there was a comparison that I would make, it would definitely not be to a Mark Gronowski, or I'm trying to think of another guy who would be a good example of someone who's like a Josh Allen type, Don, who's kind of cut and built. That just wasn't Spencer Petras. He just wasn't built like that. He was more of
Another way to look at it, Corey. If Mark years ago would have decided he wanted to be a linebacker, he'd be playing linebacker right now in college football.
I made the comment tonight. I'm like, he runs a little bit like a tight end. So
Yeah.
if he didn't have a future in the NFL as a quarterback, maybe he could play tight end.
And my point of bringing it up that way, the one thing I'm sure of is that Spencer would not have made a good linebacker.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
As much as we love Spencer Petras, and what a
He's gonna
great
have a great career in some field. Absolutely. I have no doubt about that.
he was a great leader. He always owned up to any mistakes, took responsibility, sign of a great leader. So I commend Spencer Petras. And Don, I'll just make this statement. I was pondering going to the Indiana game, making the drive, the 8-hour venture, and I was kind of on the fence, and I'm off the fence. Now that I know you're doing bowl game analytics, you're going to give us that competitive advantage. I'm all in. I'm taking my son, who's snoozing over. We're at a soccer tournament in Traverse City, Michigan.
I know where Traverse City is.
First game's not until 2 p.m. Otherwise, I wouldn't be up right now. But anyway, no,
It's
but
in Indiana, I believe it's 2:30 kick, right?
Correct. 2:30
Yeah.
on Peacock.
yeah, and I'm referring to our soccer game tomorrow.
Right.
For
My point is,
otherwise, I wouldn't be up right now. But yeah, no, I'm going to take my 13-year-old, and we're going to bust it for Kinnick, because I know that we've got Don Patterson doing bowl game level analytics.
here's the bad name, Corey. Even if you know what needs to be done, that still doesn't, that gives you a chance to get it done because you're aware of what needs to be done. The only question is, are you good enough to pull it off? But at least you're as informed as you can possibly be.
But I've got a brother-in-law that bets a lot on football, and he says, "What's happened to Iowa defense?" I said, "If I know Phil Parker," I said, "yeah, there's 21 points on the board right now." I said, "If I know Phil Parker like I think I do," I said, "you ought to make a bet that Rutgers does not score more than 28 points for the whole game. In other words, 7 more points the rest of the game in the second half," which is exactly what happened. And I was feeling like I was out on a little bit of a limb.
Think about this. It was actually 7 points given up over the last 42 minutes of the game.
Wow. So
if you look at it like that, I think we solved it pretty well.
And one other thing I want to point out, well, two things. In my opinion, Dayton Howard was getting mugged and getting pass interference, pressured, and guys hanging on him. Every time I was watching the ball in the air, somebody pulling on him, tugging on him. They never called it once. And then the other thing I'll say is Aaron Graves was a monster tonight. He was turning the corner and coming after the quarterback. They were horse collaring him. They were face masking him. They never called anything. They were holding him all night.
So I'm smiling right now. I promise you, if there's a late night show for Rutgers fans, they're complaining about the exact same things.
Well,
our DBs were holding, and for that matter, so was the O-line. That's what they're saying.
But I mean, they were hanging on for dear life with. So I just feel like, you know what? Just like Phil Parker said, guys, don't press. Seth Wallace made fun of them, the no boys, called them the no boys. And Phil said, guys, don't press. Keep doing the same thing. Make sure you're in position, play your game, and those turnovers will come your way. Those opportunities will come your way. And they most certainly did. We got one tonight. And so Phil knows what he's doing. Trust in Phil and trust in KF. And I want to say one other thing about Kirk Ferentz and all these these people bashing his conservatism. And let me just plant seed for thought. And some will say, oh, that's a loser's mentality and all this. But say that maybe that you don't have the best skilled position players and you don't match up competitively one-on-one versus another team. Maybe their skilled players are better than you. Doesn't it predispose you to more risk and more? Aren't you going to have better success if you run plays that are more to do with power and team blocking versus throwing the ball up and deep balls to a lesser skilled player who might be defended by a greater skilled player? Isn't there a heck of a lot better odds to win the football game by team blocking and power football and scheming that way versus going skilled player versus skilled player if you don't have the matchups?
I'll give you an example that comes to mind. It was just played last weekend. It was Oregon at Northwestern. Northwestern came out with the idea, let's see if we can possess the ball. We got to eliminate mistakes because we got to be able to gain 3 or 4 yards on first down, 3 or 4 yards on second down, and then convert on third down and keep the ball away from Oregon. I go back to the example I used before. When Western Illinois is playing LSU, I guarantee if you go back and look at the game, we snapped the ball with 1 or 2 seconds on the clock. Because the emphasis was we got to make the game as short as possible. And let's face it, if you're the underdog, you're more likely to win the game if it is 9 possessions for each team versus 12. Because maybe it's 9 possessions and you're lucky enough to generate 3 turnovers. So now that eliminates 3 of those 9 possessions. How many points do you give up on the other 6? Maybe you get 3 stops. Maybe you give up 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. And that's a good night's work if you're the underdog, because you only gave up 13 points. And maybe you're able to generate 14 points. Even if it's a block punt for a touchdown and a kickoff return for a touchdown. You get my drift, Corey. It gives you a better chance to win the game if you can shorten the game.
For sure, Don. The other thing is, if you score it in 3 throws like Ohio State, your defense is right back out on the field again, and they're not fresh.
Correct.
And as bad as people hate Iowa's conservative offenses over the years, they possess the ball and they rest their defense, and it may very well be a good portion of why Iowa defense has been so good, because they're able to come out there and be fresh, and I'm not taking anything away from Phil Parker or any of these defensive players because they've been incredible, but just, it all plays together. It's all part of it.
Here's another analogy I'll give you. I like numbers, so it's no surprise to either one of you, I bet. I enjoy playing blackjack. Now, I'm not a gambler, believe me, but if we're in Vegas, my wife's going to go shopping, and I'm going to play blackjack. And you might say, well, how long do you play? Oh, I might play for half a day. I might play for 6 hours. Here's the rest of the story. I'm placing a minimum bet, and I know how to play. And as you know, if you know how to play, even in the house has a slight advantage over you, 51-49, right? That's assuming you know how to play. I do know how to play blackjack. And people have asked me, give me some advice about blackjack. I say, okay, how much money are you prepared to lose? They might say, $200. I said, okay, put $100 down on the first hand. $100 because you got to be prepared to double down. And oh, by the way, if you win the bet after doubling down, take your money and leave. Because the longer you play, the more likely you are to lose. Same principle in football. If you can shorten the game as an underdog, you're better off. It gives you a better chance to win.
Corey, thank you for being here. I'm going to let you slide because it's 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah. No.
It's actually 2:30 in the morning in Michigan. So,
Yes.
yeah, get some sleep. Get up for your kids' event and be in Kinnick next Saturday for another afternoon event, a much bigger one.
Yeah, and that wasn't just Rutgers. That's a different Rutgers team. That was a big win on the road. That was a great environment. I think this team grew up a lot, and I'm really excited moving forward here. If we can take down Indiana, it's going to start getting really exciting. And then we've got to do 4-hour minimum shows every week moving forward. So
very interesting. Who's going to host those shows? Thank you, Corey. Appreciate the call. Good stuff. All right, Lisa. Thank you. Reminding everybody, folks, how do we have we have 350 people watching, Don, at 1:30 in the morning. I just don't know how that's possible because it's not like we had a good crowd tonight. No question. We had in the 600s of concurrent viewers, but I'm like, that's not that much less than we had when we started 3 hours ago. So I'm like, how are we keeping that many people up? This
impressed me, Corey. Not a single caller has been in a bar either.
No, and nobody seems like they're overly tired. So, Lisa, thank you for reminding everybody to smash the like button. Don't damage your device, but smash that like button. And she adds, we're so fortunate to have the community on here. So absolutely. Thank you. You guys are the community. So thank you for that. Mark is here as well. Thanks, Mark. Reminding everybody to like and subscribe if you've not already done so. Zach, no Tom tonight. He's on the East Coast. And with the late presser, late game, just we should hopefully get Tom back for a short appearance next week after Indiana. Thank you, Tim, for that as well. And all of our premium members in the chat. Jack, thank you for being a premium member. Doug, Amanda, Sam, Hawkeye Howard. Am I missing it? I'm sure I missed a couple. And if you're a premium member, thank you for being here. Okay. And the more you comment, the more I'll try to get your shout out in, because we do appreciate all of our YouTube premium members. And if you signed up for Discord, you can still do that if you haven't signed up for Discord, right? So you just donate to the show via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, and just write in the comment section of your donation that it's for Discord. $5 a month, $50 for a year. So you can either make it a $5 concurrent donation or just one-time $50 donation. You'll get in for Discord for the next calendar year to chat with myself, Kyle Spence, talk about the game. We'll talk about whatever. We're going to get launched. I mean, we're launching this. It is launched, but we're going to really start ramping up as we get closer to men's and women's basketball, because that is getting underway here in about a month. So now is the time to hop on for Discord. So we appreciate it if you have already done that for being here. Tacoon wants to know about Mark's poise. You've talked about it, but he did seem to have a little bit of a different aura about him tonight, simply getting more comfortable with this offense, Don?
I think so. I think he's getting a little more comfortable week to week. I know this last week I was at practice on Tuesday. I'm sorry, this week. I was on Tuesday. Normally I go on Wednesday, but they had their Wednesday practice on Tuesday, right? A day early because of the Friday game. And when I saw Mark, I just had one word to share with him. And I had a smile on my face when I said it. That word was progress. We were better than we were the week before. And he smiled back and he said, yep, we're improving, Coach. And I said, yes, we are. And I don't doubt that progress is going to continue. And I think we'll all agree this was progress from the first 3 weeks. I know that you might argue that defense was better against Iowa State. I'm not sure of that because Rutgers has some talent on their team too. So it was a different kind of stress. The bottom line, of course, the offense realized we had to produce points because otherwise we're going to lose this game. And versus Iowa State when, it was very much even all the way through score-wise.
Jen, thank you for being a premium member as well. She says it's a late entrance, but you're here. So we appreciate that, Jen. Thank you for your ongoing support. Much appreciated. And let's see. We've got Jackson still on hold. Might be our final caller of the night. So we'll wrap this thing up. We just hit the 3-hour mark, so that's great. Let's go kind of quick fire on these comments, Don. Doug says Illinois or Indiana tomorrow. And that kind of goes along with what Mark asked. Mark also asked the question, do Iowa fans care? Indiana, Illinois, and then he also adds the Michigan-Nebraska game, Big Ten matchup. Special shout-out to our Big Ten show that I do with Mark every Tuesday at 5 Central over on the main Voice of College Football channel. But, Don, do you have opinions on Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska? What do you expect to have happen, and what do you think Iowa fans should be rooting for?
Well, Michigan, Nebraska, since we don't play Michigan, I'm hoping for Michigan to win.
Well, why do you – wait, hold on a second. Why would you want Michigan to win because they don't play Iowa? Why would you want Nebraska?
I want Nebraska to have their season fall out on them like it did last year.
But couldn't you also argue that you want Iowa's schedule to look as good as possible? So the better Nebraska does, the better that win looks.
That's all well and good, Corey, but we have to go to Lincoln. I'll remind you. I want them to be a little bit demoralized when we get there.
It is late in the season. Indiana,
Illinois, that's the tough one.
I think Illinois wins. That's. I'll just say I think Illinois wins. But
tell me why.
Tell you why?
I hope you're right.
I trust Illinois. I trust them in the trenches more than I trust Indiana. I think, and part of that is I haven't watched a lot of either team. Neither team has played a great schedule. That Illinois-Duke game was not as competitive as I was hoping it would be. Duke's not very good, so they have not played a difficult schedule. Indiana's not played a difficult schedule. But I trust, first of all, Altmaier's been there longer than Mendoza's been at Indiana. And I trust that Brett's teams are built from the inside out. And I just think what he's got there is more trustworthy. It's just there's a longer sample size. I just trust in the stability there. And I just had questions about Indiana heading into this year from a perspective of can they do it for more than 1 year? And they haven't proven anything this year because they've played literally nobody. Yeah. And I want to hear about this Indiana guy that came on the show with Mark the other night. That was arguing that Old Dominion's a good win. I don't care about you beating ODU. I don't care about that. Yeah, ODU.
They upset someone the next week, I think, didn't they?
Vatek.
Vatek, who fired their coach.
Nobody cares about Vatek. Okay, with all due respect, nobody cares about Vatek. So I don't want to hear about that. They have played nobody. Now, if they go out and beat Illinois, it'd be a good win. But these two teams have questions to answer still.
Well, I like Illinois because I like Brett. I have a history with Brett, of course. Here's what I'd like to happen. Illinois in a close game wins. The reason I say that means Indiana doesn't drop out of the top 25. Because I would like for us to knock off a ranked team next Saturday.
You know what's sad, Don, is I believe Indiana and Illinois over the last couple of years have both scheduled game, or obviously they didn't schedule, but these past couple of years they have played your Western Illinois Leathernecks just to beat up on them.
And they
have.
They made them like they stole something.
Yeah, like they stole their marble rye, Don.
Yeah.
There should be a law against, until Western Illinois figures out to get some way halfway back to the heydays of Don Patterson, there should be a ban within the Big Ten Conference of scheduling the Leathernecks. Like that should not be allowed.
As you know, Corey, I just heard a great interview with Jerry Moore, a sports writer that sent it to me. And it was all about, all they talked about was the game in the Big House, Appalachian State upsetting Michigan. A lot of people consider that to be the biggest upset in the history of college football. I wouldn't go quite that far because App State, I believe, had won national titles the previous 2 years, and they had another good team that year. And it was just interesting to hear about it because it caused me to flash back on our game against LSU. As you know, we didn't beat LSU, but we actually gained a lot of confidence with how we could play in losing to LSU. And that's a year where we might have won the national title, except we got caught in 10 inches of snow in upstate New York and lost to Colgate. Colgate played the national championship, lost by 2 or 3 touchdowns. We're the one team that might have beaten Delaware, I think, that year.
Charles in the chat says he'll never root for Nebraska. So there's some people that just have this disdain for rivals, and I totally get it. I'll be rooting for Illinois. Even I understand, like Mark said in the chat, well, Iowa fans should be rooting for Indiana and Nebraska because it helps you because they don't play Illinois or Michigan. I have a hard time rooting against Brett, and I have a hard time rooting for Nebraska. Okay. I was rooting for Cincinnati to beat Nebraska. Now that makes no sense because you ought to be rooting for your conference. But I found myself rooting for Cincinnati to beat Nebraska because I'm looking at that Arrowhead Stadium just filled with delusion. I hate to say that, but the delusion, it's like they just won a Super Bowl. They literally believe they had won the Super Bowl for beating a team in the Big 12 that will probably finish bottom third, bottom fourth of the league. So anyways, Scott Jensen adding a late night super chat. Thank you for this, Scott. He says, Gronowski is a gamer. Guy is on a roll with his winning. With that defense behind him, this is getting interesting. So this is interesting. Scott is very positive about the defense. Is that more so? Is he just looking at the adjustments that were made and how they played down the stretch? Because you'd be hard-pressed to find a first half or at least a first quarter and a half where that Iowa defense played worse, Don.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I mean, it's kind of hard to weigh the whole game because we saw a quarter and a half of really bad pass defense and then a pretty good stretch to the end of the game where Iowa was solid basically at all 3 levels.
Well, this is it. All those first 2 drives were worth 138 yards. That was all in the first quarter. So they're on pace to be over 500 yards, of course, for the game. And thankfully, we slowed them down a lot after that. But, you know, we have some things to clean up, that's for sure. But I have a lot of faith in Phil and the defensive staff for getting it done. We'll figure out better how we need to play. And, of course, we have no choice because I promise you Indiana does have an idea of what they're doing too. So we'll have our hands full once again. But the bottom line, we had a pretty good test tonight. We faced a lot of adversity on the road in a hostile environment. The stadium was sold out. I know that because my wife had alerted me that it was a sellout because I had told her, well, regardless of where your seats are, just figure out where the Iowa fans are and just go to those empty seats near them. And she texted me this morning and said it's sold out. I said, well, I think you're forced to stay in your own seat. So I guess that's a bad idea to look for empty seats. There weren't many. It was pretty full.
Okay. Real quick, before we go to what I believe is going to be our final caller, Jackson, I want to give a real quick shout out to our sponsor, RTI Threads, because this is their website, folks. I'll throw it up on the screen for everybody to look at. Yeah, there it is. Oh, the choices that StreamYard makes. Anyways, here's the website, folks. This is the NIL division of RTI Threads. So how about this? The official merch lines for Jacob Gill, Aaron Graves, Carson Shire, Zach Lutmer, and you can browse all of the gear. How about we look at Aaron Graves? I thought he was pretty effective down the stretch to help that defensive line get some pressure on Callie Aikmanis. But buy your gear. We've been giving away hats. We've been giving away hoodies, quarter zips. But this gear is all just awesome. And if you go on here and get ready for maybe winter with your embroidered beanie, your Aaron Graves beanie, boy, this is slick. And you can pick your color, customize, get the size you want, whatever the case may be. Buy for your wife. You want to dress your wife up like Aaron Graves, Don? Is that a good idea?
Well, I kind of like the logo. I just figured out his nickname must be the Grave Digger, huh?
That's right. You just figured that out, Don. We're only 4 years into his career at Iowa, but you got it. So how about it?
Well, Aaron and I don't go to the movies together, so I wasn't aware of that.
He is the Grave Digger. So, but yeah, get your kids dressed up in Aaron Graves apparel. Get yourself dressed up in Aaron Graves apparel. And you can also shop Zach Lutmer, Carson Shire, and Jacob Gill while you're at it. Supporting these great athletes is just an obvious thing to do. And you're supporting our show, our sponsors. It all helps immensely. And again, great gift ideas for your favorite Hawkeye friends. So again, go to rtithreads.com, NIL division right there, NIL division, and browse your favorite Hawkeyes at rtithreads.com. All right, we are back here finishing up our discussion on Iowa Rutgers. So let's see here. We have Jackson we're going to add to our Iowa Smokehouse call line. Let's get Jackson in here. Jackson, welcome to the show. Well, you split us down the middle there for a second, Jackson.
Oh, long time no see, gents. It's been a minute since Black Friday on November 29th of 2024. Last time I called. How have y'all been since?
No, Black Friday of 2024. Wow, you got that marked in your calendar. That's skill.
Yep. And before that was New Year's Day of 2024 when I first met Coach Patterson. And the first time I called was on the Oregon-Washington live stream in August. And it was on a Friday. That was when I first called you, Corey.
Oregon, good memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did a live stream on breaking news of Oregon, Washington going to the Big Ten.
Okay. Oh, wow. Wow, that feels like a century ago when those teams were added to this league. So, let me ask you a question, Jackson. Best games you have on the docket this weekend? Don, just so you're aware, Jackson here is a part of the Voice of College Football team, and he's a huge college football junkie. So, Jackson, you're the biggest games on the docket. Mark's already brought up the Illinois-Indiana game, Michigan-Nebraska.
Oh, man. Those are good. I mean, I would have had Miami, Florida on that list, but the problem is Florida's a complete disaster. Brendan Bett, I don't even need to go on detail what an idiot he is. I mean, like spitting on an opponent's like not cool. Not cool. I mean, his mom ought to have a talk with him. But, Michigan, Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana are the best games right there. Auburn, Oklahoma, tremendous matchup. Like, you're going to see what both these teams are going to be creating. And Texas Tech, Utah, it's put up or shut up time for the Red Raiders.
Texas Tech, Utah. That might be my favorite non-Big Ten matchup because I don't really know what to make of Texas Tech yet. Who have they played? Have they played anybody?
Well, they played Oregon State, but there's really nothing to make of Oregon. Like, it felt like watching Robert De Niro spanking Leonardo DiCaprio.
By the way, who won between Oklahoma State and Tulsa?
Oh, Tulsa won 19-12. It was the first time.
Mike Gundy, real quick, he's got to be fired, right? He has to be. You cannot allow your program. Don, real quick, comment on Mike Gundy.
It might be an issue because of his contract.
What do you mean? Say that again?
It might be an issue that he has a long-term contract.
They have got to move him fast. And I know he's done a lot of good for that program, but they are embarrassing their conference. They're embarrassing that. Don, you can't lose by 60 plus to anybody when you're the head coach at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, 19-12 was just a complete disaster.
And they were at home. They lost that game at home to Tulsa.
The first time since 1951 that they lost in Stillwater, Oklahoma. The first time since 1951. As a matter of fact, first time since 1998 that they lost to Tulsa as a whole. That's bad.
Is that a game that is played every? Is that a rivalry? I don't
I
even
think
know.
they play every year.
No.
It's not a
Every
rivalry.
now and then.
Well, I don't consider it a rivalry, but Oklahoma State is it's kind of like, they replaced Oklahoma with Tulsa as like, like how people that replace their significant other with their rebounds, like it's like, it's like a that's not Erica or not John. So that's kind of what they're doing with Tulsa. We're playing not Oklahoma this Saturday.
Donna, what can you say about Mike Gundy? I
I don't really know him well. Have you seen the silly commercial on TV or like come to think of it?
Yeah.
No, but Mark says that Mike Gundy's signed through 27 and his buyout's $15 million. So,
well, there'd be a couple of guys in the oil business who could take care of that.
The old business.
No, it's business, BID.
Business. Yeah, the business.
Business.
Yep.
Oh man, I feel like Mike Gundy's just kind of checked out of coaching at this point. With the NIL, he doesn't seem like that kind of guy that seems all that invested in it. But
Don, what were you going to say, Don, about Mike Gundy?
Oh, he's got this commercial on TV, and it's a takeoff on that infamous press conference that he had some years ago.
Commercial.
There was something about his age, right? He said,
"Yeah, he's I'm a man. I'm 40.
Yeah, I'm a grown-ass man.
Go after me." Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, it was some product he was selling. I just remember being surprised. I thought it was in poor taste. This was a guy that's a college football coach, and
well,
it seemed like it was improper.
It appears that maybe he's not taking it quite as seriously as he used to.
Right.
Is that fair? That does happen. So,
yeah.
Hey, how about this? They've lost 11 of their last 12 games, and their one win is over UTM, Don. UTM.
Yeah, Tennessee Martin's not very good.
Yikes, my dude.
If they lost tonight,
we played Tennessee Martin 1 week after we played LSU. Halftime score is 49-0.
Hey, and real quick, just so people are aware, that Tulsa team that beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater tonight, Don, lost by 7 to New Mexico State and lost last week by 19 to Navy. So this is an Oklahoma State team that's in shambles right now.
Yeah, it could be over the way they're headed.
Yeah, that's scary. Well, they did beat. Yeah, they had the game against Tennessee Martin. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to win a game on the schedule. I guess it's possible, but
well,
yeah.
If Gundy's staying, which we'll find out this Sunday, whether he gets that vote of confidence, then they're going to have a humongous rebound for the 2025 season in conference play. But like you said, Corey, you don't see it. I don't see it. The American people don't see it. It's just not happening. It's just not going to happen.
Was the win over Tennessee Martin last year or this year?
It was this year. Week 1.
This year, okay.
Yep. So,
oof.
Yeah, UCLA and Oklahoma State are both disasters. So, anyways, Jackson, appreciate you calling in, sir. Any parting words for Coach P?
Well, we'll say, though, I was impressed with the special teams tonight from Iowa. It was humongous. The block field goal. That really helped. I mean, we didn't talk about the block. We didn't talk about the blocked field goal, Don. That was Ethan Herkett that got up, and boy, big play.
Oh.
Rutgers had missed the one field goal off the upright on the play that got backed up, and then they got the blocked field goal later inside of 30 yards.
We got a really good push inside. I couldn't help but notice. It seemed to me their kicker I thought was slow. The ball was ready to be kicked a long time before he got there.
Okay.
My only point is it gave us a chance to penetrate just a little bit deeper into their backfield and gave us a little better chance, of course, to get our hands on it.
Oh, man.
It was a big play.
Special teams win games sometimes, and that's Iowa's calling card oftentimes, Jackson.
Can you imagine why in God's name didn't they punt the ball off the field at the end of the half?
Oh, good grief.
Well,
I would just drop down. I would have just dropped down. Like,
why didn't they kick off the field? Why didn't UMass kick off the field in the third quarter when they said they were going to kick off the field? And what did he do? He get back, So
I think punters need to practice more about kicking the ball off the field because apparently they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like NFL where it's like if you go down, you're not down until somebody touches you. In college, if you're down, that's because you go down. So it's like if you go down at the field goal range, you're good to go.
You're talking about the end of the first half with Weegan not going
that
out of bounds. Yeah, he could have just gotten down or gotten out of bounds, one of the two. And it was brought up in the live chat, Don, just to clarify, because I said this and you were kind of challenging me on it. Tacoon said when Weegan got to the 40, there was 3 seconds left on the clock.
But when he got to the 40, Corey, he wasn't on the boundary either.
Yes, he was.
No, why didn't you go back and look?
Okay.
Because I looked after we talked. That's
Listen.
why I said I could say with confidence he could have run out of bounds at the 40, and there'd have been at least 2 seconds on the clock, maybe 3. At least 2. Because when he got to the 40-yard line, he wasn't on the boundary. He was in toward the hash.
Okay. Well, but he could have gotten to the 35 and had 1 or 2 seconds left. That's all I'm saying.
There we go.
I can say with confidence he could have at least run out at the 40 and been safe. For sure. There'd have been at least 3 seconds left, I think, there. Like you heard me say, I wouldn't cut it too closely because they are the home team. And if that guy's a little bit slow on that clock, we'll have to hope then that the officials will put 1 second back on the clock.
Jackson, thank you for being here, sir. We'll do this again.
Absolutely, Corey. We'll be seeing you soon. Stay safe, stay cool, stay away from the heat, and tell your friends, family, and the cashiers at Hy-Vee about the magic that Corey Brad brings, all right here on From the Hawkeye of the Storm. And for those tuning in on Iowa at the Voice of College Football, tune in for Hawkeyes Live Tuesday afternoons, 4 p.m. Central Time with Mark Rogers. And tune in for the Big Ten Live Show with Corey Brad and Mark Rogers, 5 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. And if you're watching on Iowa at the Voice of College Football, also tune in for Iowa Primetime Live Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time with Josh Helmer and Zach Heine. And the Iowa Primetime Live call-in show with Zach Heine and Josh Hamill at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursdays.
Wasn't even scripted, Don. It wasn't even scripted. He just went into that. It was just a natural, so credit to Jackson on that.
He's a good young man.
Scott, thank you for the super chat. Which game would you guess we might crack the top 20? Which game would you guess we might crack the top 25 this year?
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it because
they may not. I mean, if they lose next week to Indiana, it's going to be hard to do that because then they're going to have Penn State on the. Yeah, if they beat Indiana, I don't care about the top 25 to be quite frank, but I do appreciate the super chat, Scott. So I'll answer your question. If they beat Indiana next week, they may get votes, but that they still the committee, the voters are not watching all these games enough. They're still going to look. Oh, that's a 4-1 Iowa team. They're still going to punish them for losing to Iowa State, and sure, I guess they should. But there's going to be enough undefeated teams. That 0 next to under the L column, voters care about probably a little bit too much. But it's all subjective. That's what's dumb about the polls. There's no rules. It's just what these voters want to do. So, anyways, the real Hayden. Thank you for the super chat, Scott. The real Hayden says Steph Curry has 4 rings and is the greatest shooter of all time. He can be as cocky as he wants to be. Yeah, he can, and I can continue to not like him. He can do whatever he wants. And Drew Stevens can be cocky and be the first NFL kicker drafted next spring. What's your point? I don't get the point. I never said anything about Steph Curry not being a really great basketball player. I simply said I don't tend to enjoy or relate to someone like Steph Curry as opposed to a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, etc. So I don't know what the point of that. He must be a big Steph Curry fan. So I guess I hurt the feelings of Hayden there. David says, is Jarrett Bowie still hurt? Yes. Nursing soft tissue stuff. Scott, if Patterson misses next week, how many carries do you think McNeil gets? I mean, if Moulton and Washington are healthy, I mean, I don't know what Xavier Williams' status moving forward is, but I don't think you're going to see McNeil get maybe he'll get a handful, and I mean literally a handful, like 3, 4, maybe 5 at the most. But it was good to see him at least get a carry when it counted today.
How were Washington's numbers tonight? Do you know?
I don't know. Really, did he get any carries tonight, Don?
I don't know.
He had one carry for no yards.
Yeah.
So he's I don't know if he's in the doghouse, but he's not getting as much play for sure. So Abby and Denzel, Watson was in on the last 2 defensive series for Lee, I noticed. Is that true, Don, or were they in nickel and he was just on the field as an additional corner?
Yeah, they might have been when they'll go with, you might think of it as dime coverage. You know, you got the cash out there that's a DB, and Watson's the third corner. My guess is that Lee was still out there, but I don't know that for a fact.
Andrew says, which is better for the pass defense, to drop more guys or to rush more guys?
Depends on the quarterback. Some guys get really nervous when you line them up, and in that case, I'm trying to get to the quarterback. Other guys are maybe really, really elusive and can still get out of the pocket. And in those cases, you better have a lot of eyes on the quarterback. Because if he's scrambling, and of course, as he crosses the line of scrimmage, you're no longer in coverage. You got to support to the quarterback and make a tackle before he makes another first down.
Mark says, is it too early to ask the question, who's better, Gronowski or Stanley?
I think it's a little bit too early, but I do have a high opinion of Nate Stanley. As you know, Corey, 2017, we talked a little bit about 2-minute offense. I don't know if we've done it on the air, have we? I don't believe we have.
I don't know that we have.
But one of the more unusual games, talking about Nate Stanley, our listeners remember this game because it's such a wonderful game, although we lost. We had a great example of 2-minute offense to go ahead of a Penn State team back in 2017 in Kenny. The only problem, we scored in 1 minute, which left Penn State 142. Penn State was not leaving the field as we did. We did it in 3 plays. One, they had I think a 47-yard run to score the touchdown. The only problem, Penn State went back down the field. They had a couple of guys that were above average by the name of Saquon Barkley and the quarterback. I can't think of his name.
Trace McSorley.
Thank you. Trace McSorley, who's also on an NFL roster. They beat us on the last play of the game, you might recall. The great football game because both teams were successful with 2-minute offense.
Yep.
The only problem is they were the last ones to do it, and they were the last ones to score.
Very similar, although the Iowa State game was a lot higher scoring, but that Iowa State game in 2017 was 44-41, won in overtime, back and forth, 2-minute offense. Like, there were some similarities there. 2017 was a crazy year when you look back at it, Don, offensively. You have the Penn State game that was low scoring, but 2-minute offense was really good, and you lose the game at the end. Night game, you have 2017 Iowa State where it's 44-41 overtime. You get the game-winning play to Amir Smith-Marset. Then you have the Ohio State game, and then you have the very next week, you have no offense against Wisconsin except 2 pick sixes, which kept you in the game from Josh Jackson. But it was just such a weird year when you look back at it. And then you had the ice rink game, the Boston College Bowl game out in New York at the Pinstripe Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. A lot of ups and downs.
Yeah. NFL Prime says, are you excited for Iowa men's basketball season? Absolutely. Absolutely. Got the schedule now. We'll have media day next week. Zach says, I'd never heard of the story of how you and Coach got connected. How did the postgame show with Coach Patterson?
I'll let you tell that one, Corey.
Well, it's not, I don't really think it's that interesting of a story. I reached out to Don because I knew he was in the area, and
I was hoping you thought it was more interesting than I remember it.
No, there's not some crazy way that we didn't like run into each other at a supermarket buying salsa or something. No, it was just some I reached out because I had a lot of respect for what you've done in the Hawkeye space since you've been retired, and knew you still did analytics for Kirk Ferentz. And
how'd you get my phone number?
You called me, I believe. I think I emailed. I got you. I think I emailed you first. Somehow
Okay.
I had. Yeah, I don't think I called you. So that's been a while back.
Yeah.
Okay, Don, before we wrap this show up, we're 3.5 hours in. We need to wrap this thing up. Let me just run through my game notes, and I'm going to go top to bottom.
Okay.
I take a lot of notes. Let me go top to bottom, and feel free to comment as I go or when I'm finished. I'll go with first quarter. Caden Weegan takes the kickoff return for a touchdown, 104 yards. I have one word in all caps, speed. You get him when he sees space, speed, right? Quick Rutgers response with a touchdown rush after an explosive pass play. Zach Lutmer got beat on that play. I thought after that, Zach played very well. Following drive, I thought it was a missed pass interference on a Seth Anderson deep ball. First offensive play, Iowa goes shot to Seth Anderson. Did you feel that was pass interference, Don? They slowed it down. It looked like it was clearly pass interference.
Well, it was underthrown, that's for sure.
It was underthrown, but it was still pass interference. Had to be.
At the time, I didn't think so, but
okay, all right.
I didn't write it down at least.
We'll watch it again, and then Sam, that's followed up.
I don't remember where the DB's eyes were.
I don't know. I don't think the DB's eyes were much of a factor in that play. He's pulling Seth Anderson down before the ball gets there.
Okay. Yeah, who knows? I mean,
I know when you slow it down, it looks worse, but I'm just saying he was definitely early. Without question, was early.
Yeah.
Sam Phillips then has the horrible drop. I thought it was a horrible drop on a third down deep shot down the sidelines.
Yep.
Iowa goes 3 and out. Then another Rutgers touchdown. They're marching down the field easily, I have in my notes. Iowa uses a 2nd and 2 waste down. They go deep to Sam Phillips on that next drive, followed up with a Kamari Moulton rushing touchdown. And that was on a play, Don, it appeared on the TV broadcast that Mark Gronowski changed the call at the line of scrimmage, and that created the rushing touchdown for Moulton. Did you notice the same thing?
Well, I noticed this. There are times when you see him alerting the players, and you see him doing this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, if they observed it one time, they wouldn't be surprised to see maybe somebody trying to run and go around and hit a big play. I was glad to see, because maybe that's an alert, this man coverage, but I was glad to see it's possible we go with this signal and it'll be a run play. In other words, the signal doesn't indicate that it's going to be a home run pass.
Right.
Might just be another run.
Second quarter, so it's 14-14 into the first. Second quarter, another Rutgers touchdown, and then another Iowa touchdown. Hawkeyes finally get a stop. Questionable non-holding call, or a holding call that wasn't called, and a pass interference that wasn't called. Rutgers then makes a 32-yard field goal, but it's a false start, so they have to kick from 37, and they miss, clang it off the upright. That ball ricochets inside. We've seen, it seems like Iowa's had some plays go against them where a kicker has hit the upright and it clangs in, whereas Drew Stevens has had a kick or two in his career that has clanged off the upright and bounced back out. In this case, Iowa got the good drop, the good bounce. The 37-yard field goal misses off that right upright, bounces inside but out of the crossbars. Then a horrible missed encroachment play, Don. Maybe that's not the right call, but Iowa's punting late in the second quarter. It's 4th and 3. Kirk Ferentz is hot because Iowa changes the punt formation.
Yeah.
And it looked like, and maybe that's the wrong call. Isn't that encroachment? What Rutgers did? A guy.
Well, I think the announcer commented the guy was clearly off across the line of scrimmage, but I think he got back without any contact.
Yeah, but okay, so he can go anywhere he wants without contact and then return?
As long as the ball hadn't been snapped.
He can go all the way. Okay, all right.
Well, no, he went across the line of scrimmage by.
He wasn't just in the neutral zone, is my point. He was.
Right, he was maybe a yard beyond the tip of the ball. I'm saying.
So what's Kirk upset about then? If he got back, what's Kirk upset about?
Well, maybe Kirk thought that he did make slight contact with the player.
Okay.
Now, one of our guys, well, we were shifting, so I don't remember exactly how the shift went.
Well, they shifted, and then when that guy jumped, it threw him off, and they stopped. Like they moved the shift back, like they shifted back. It was kind of a weird.
I think they were going to probably ship back anyway.
Okay.
Let's just remember, we had a punt block the week before. I'm thinking at the very minimum, we're trying to make them call off a punt rush maybe to be sure we get the punt out.
Yeah.
Maybe they think it's some kind of fake or something. I don't know.
So yeah, maybe I'm staying corrected on that. I thought it was maybe a missed encroachment, but if there was no contact point taken there.
I believe the analyst mentioned there was no contact made, so it's okay to get back on side.
Iowa then forces a 3-and-out, and they get the ball back with 15 seconds left. The problem is Caden Weegan does not get out of bounds. They're clearly in field goal range if he gets out of bounds or just gets down. Instead, he goes for the home run, gets tackled like at the 20 or just inside the 20, and the half is over. And as soon as he hit the ground, he knew it.
Right.
So either he knew that, oh, crap, I shouldn't have done that unless I knew I had a touchdown, or, oh, crap, I didn't follow the coach's instructions. LeVar was talking to him as they were going off the field, but we don't know what instructions were given or were not given to Caden Weegan prior to that play.
You're not going to be at Kirk's press conference this week, I guess, are you?
No, but I
wish someone would ask that.
Yeah, that's a good. We do get this week. We will get Zoom availability with an assistant coach. So let's cross our fingers that that's LeVar. That would be a great time for LeVar Woods. So
yeah.
Third quarter, so it's 21-21 halftime. Third quarter, good Iowa drive. Stevens misses a 40-yard field goal, and it looked like it was very wide right, and maybe it wasn't, but it appeared that it was way wide right. Then,
what about the operation, Corey? Did you notice the snap and the placement? It looked like the placement was okay, I think, didn't it?
Yeah, they've had some issues. They have had some issues with field goal snapping here in the last couple of weeks, but I didn't notice anything with that. But I
didn't either.
Yeah, that's such a fine-tuned thing that I'm not – it's hard to see in live footage. Then Iowa gets a blocked field goal. How big was the blocked field goal from Ethan Hurkett on the 29-yard attempt for Rutgers? Then a huge third-down conversion. You brought this up. Iowa got the ball back. The third-down conversion to Caden Weegan, which took them into plus territory. What a huge play to end that third quarter. Fourth quarter, then Mark Gronowski throws – they're in the red zone, and – Zach Ortworth is all by himself. Don, talk about that play. We've talked about how he threw at the feet of Zach Ortworth. Maybe it was partially tipped, maybe not great footwork. Iowa has to settle for a field goal. But what was the play that created a wide open tight end on the left side of the field for Iowa?
I would say we used to run a play like that. We would actually run it. We would show sprint and then pull up the quarterback. We said we call it 52 throwback, wide hide. And the tight end, of course, there's a guy manned up on the tight end. But if he shows block and then releases, if he shows block, of course, then the defender thinks he's not going out on a route. Then he leaks out a little bit late. And it's a rub route, too. The receiver on the other side is coming on a drive route. You rub off him, you're wide open. And as Ortworth was, and the crazy thing about football, I think a lot of quarterbacks will tell you those are some of the hardest ones to complete because there's nobody in the vicinity, and you find yourself wanting just to hand it to them, because you can't, because it's still a 20-yard, 25-yard throw, and the ball came up short, and I think it's simply because he was flat foot when he threw it. He didn't slide his weight to his front foot and transfer his weight. And it wasn't a normal throw, and it fell short because of that, I think.
Rutgers then marches downfield, scores a touchdown, and it appeared easily. And then it's that next drive. Iowa's down 4. You're talking with under 7 minutes, like, man, second down and 6. What's the call here? They go deep shot, not to Sam Phillips, not to Seth Anderson, not to Jacob Gill, not to Caden Weegan, to one Dayton Howard, who I don't even know, has he been targeted maybe once or twice this year through 4 games?
Not when it mattered.
Not when it mattered. They go 42 yards to Dayton Howard. He makes a great throw by Mark, better catch by Dayton Howard, I would say. Phenomenal catch. That's a big-time catch for a guy who was way under-recruited, did not have any other offers at any level to play college football. And then Iowa caps off that drive with a Gronowski rushing touchdown on RPO play. And right, was that an RPO, Don? I'm trying to think back to
It was a zone read. He's got a back in the line.
Okay, that's
He's
right.
reading him in the line. If he squeezes,
he went right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, just phenomenal stick-to-itiveness from this team down the stretch to figure out a way to win this thing, in spite of it being a stylistically not a game Iowa's typically involved in.
And that drive, Corey, was 8 plays, 80 yards.
8 plays, 80 yards, and it was quickly. It was wasn't it like 4 minutes? I mean, obviously the 42-yarder helps, but it was relatively short in short order. And then the defense, that I didn't bring up the huge play. Jackson Rexroth intercepts a tipped pass that was deflected. I don't know that it was deflected so much as just Cali McManus's arm got hit by Llewellyn.
Llewellyn got there in time, absolutely.
Yep. Michael, thank you for being a premium member here. He says you're still up at 2 a.m. covering postgame. Yeah, we are. 2:15, actually, to be exact. Zach says he asked a question about Don because it would be like his kid in 20 years having a postgame show with Phil Parker or Kent O'Keefe. You got the Don Patterson, Aiden Fry's OC. Glad I know the story now. Great show. Appreciate that, Zach. Good stuff. Hawkeyes defeating Rutgers tonight. We could be on here all night, Don. So many things. This is a wild game, wasn't it? Wasn't it a wild game? Typically not this many fireworks with a Rutgers game.
It was a fun game to watch. It was entertaining.
It was. It would have been a difficult game to lose, though, because there would have been so many plays that you could look back at, and mistakes, Don, to go around. Both teams would say it. You know, whether you're talking about missed field goals for Rutgers, a missed field goal for Iowa, the Caden Weegan play at the end of the first half. You know, there were some questionable calls on both sides. So, feel for Rutgers, but I got a lot of respect for them, and just happy to get the win, right? I sound like a coach now. We're just happy to get the win. We move on, and, we'll watch the tape tomorrow, flush it, and get ready for Indiana on Monday, right? Or I guess on Sunday. They get a little bit extra prep now with the short week this week.
I would say this, Corey, when I looked at the schedule, I was thankful that we play Indiana before we play Penn State, before we play Oregon. They're all going to be difficult. I think the best opportunity to win one of those three is Indiana. So let's get over them, get over that hurdle, and then we can worry about the next hurdle. One at a time.
And folks, if you missed it earlier, we announced our RTI Threads player of the game tonight was Mark Gronowski. 12 of 18 through the year, 186 yards, 13 carries, 55 tough yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Led this team to a tough road win. Hopefully more to come because they've got some tough road games, namely at USC, at Nebraska. They get at Wisconsin after the bye. So plenty more challenges ahead for Mark Gronowski, but he's playing better each game, Don. It appears to me he's playing better every game. So that's good news. The Hawkeyes defeating Rutgers tonight, 38-28, the final. We won't talk. We'll hop on the show and get maybe a 10-minute preview out with you and I, Don, at some point for Iowa, Indiana, because we could be here a while. That's going to be a big game. Top 25 team, and it's homecoming, and they'll get, that'll be the last game going into the bye. We know Iowa, Kirk Ferentz tends to break up the schedule into 3 portions, 3 sections. So this is the last game of season 1, so to speak. And then they'll get the bye week before Wisconsin on the road.
Well, after we see Indiana, Illinois, we'll have a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely, folks. Enjoy Big Ten football tomorrow. Lots of great games. Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Nebraska. Great games across the country. Thank you for being with us. Get some sleep. It's 2:15 in the morning, 2:45 on the East Coast. We'll talk to you soon.